Chapter 201. The appearance of the black lotus petals made Xiao Yu, who was exhausted, even more nervous. He quickly waved his silver moon broken blade and repelled all the petals. Then he saw a black lotus slowly floating over. "Brat, what you did to me back then, I will return it to you 100 times over today." A fierce voice came from the black lotus. "Just don't play with your last wisp of remnant soul." Xiao Yu replied expressionlessly. "You still dare to be so stubborn when you're about to die. Back then, I had just broken out of the seal. Otherwise, I would have been able to kill you with just a breath. Although I haven't recovered today, I'm still more than enough to kill you." After the black lotus's angry voice came again, it suddenly bloomed again, and petals flew out. Xiao Yu didn't dare to be negligent. Immediately, the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs revolved above his head to block the black petals. As for the blood-colored seals in the formation, they were barely blocked by the golden horn shield. The ancient devil didn't use any big moves. He just controlled the black lotus's petals to attack and deal with the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs. And after losing the defense of the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs, the evil creatures and blood-colored seals of the Blood Nightmare demonic formation posed a great threat to Xiao Yu. The golden horn shield alone couldn't protect Xiao Yu tightly. The blood-colored seals constantly bombarded Xiao Yu's body. Pain came from time to time. In order to maintain the defense, Xiao Yu's power was greatly consumed. Not long after, he only had 20% of his power left. However, he didn't have any chance or time to stop and absorb the energy in the immortal stones to recover. He could only rely on pills to slowly recover. In this way, Xiao Yu lasted for less than 2 hours before his power was completely exhausted. His aura became weaker and weaker, and the power of his defensive magic treasure was greatly reduced. What made Xiao Yu curious was that his strength was decreasing, but the power of the formation and the Black Lotus's attack were also slowing down and weakening. It kept him in a state of exhaustion. Could it be that they want to wear down my power to the lowest point and then capture me alive? At this point, Xiao Yu could also think of this, but he did not have a good way to deal with it. He had no choice but to release the puppet. However, the puppet could not buy him much time to recover. The other party's attacks were still methodical, and did not change much because of the appearance of the puppet. They were still suppressing Xiao Yu, and they were not very fierce. Just as the puppet could not hold on any longer, and Xiao Yu was about to ask Ling for help, the serpent devourer of heaven that had been sleeping in the spirit beast pouch for many years finally woke up. What Xiao Yu did not expect was that as soon as the serpent woke up, it emitted a terrifying aura and directly caused the spirit beast bag to explode. The spirit beast pouch was also considered a space-type magic treasure. After this kind of magic treasure exploded, everything inside would fall into the spatial turbulence. However, after this spirit beast pouch exploded, the serpent was wrapped in a black hole and placed in the middle of the blood-submerging demon array. The spatial black hole had an extremely strong devouring ability. As long as the evil creatures and blood-colored seals created by the blood-submerging demon formation approached, they would be swallowed by the black hole. Even the speed and power of the petals that were moving at an extremely fast speed would be greatly reduced. Whether it was the Devil Sect expert controlling the formation or the one in the Black Lotus, they could not help but be surprised for a moment. My appearance this time was shocking enough, right? I won't be injured immediately after I appear this time, right? The serpent devourer of heaven thought after it came out. It felt that after following its master for so many years, it should be time for it to stand out. It no longer needed to hide in the spirit beast pouch every day and be unable to provide help to its master. These fellows who dare to go against my master, all of you shall die for this serpent. Oh no, all of you shall die for this dragon. The thoughts of demonic beasts were very simple. Even though it had evolved into a mutant divine beast, the serpent devourer of heaven did not have a complicated mind. After a few moments, the spatial black hole around the serpent disappeared. It, who was covered in purple gold scales, let out an excited dragon roar. The mighty dragon power covered the sky and the earth and surged in all directions. Even though it was in a high-grade demonic formation, the power of the demonic formation could not help but stagnate for a moment at this time. Just a beast. How dare you show off your divine ability here? A disdainful voice came from the Black Lotus. Suddenly, black petals flew out. These petals did not attack directly. Instead, they gathered into a long black sword and slashed toward the serpent. The serpent was not afraid. Perhaps due to its strong confidence after its strength had greatly improved, it raised its dragon claws and directly met the attack. The quality of the long black sword was comparable to that of a top-grade immortal treasure, and the serpent's dragon claws were not weak either. After the two collided, bursts of sparks immediately appeared from the friction, and then they retreated. The long black sword then disintegrated into black petals, and the scales on the serpent's dragon claws clearly had a few more fine cracks. Although the serpent felt a sharp pain coming from the dragon claws, it did not make the slightest sound of pain. It still looked majestic and relaxed, without the slightest damage. "Beast, let me see how many times you can block my sword." The petals of the Black Lotus once again gathered into a demonic sword and slashed toward the serpent. The serpent and the demonic sword had collided head-on once. It knew that the quality of the demonic sword was not inferior to that of a top-grade immortal treasure. Naturally, it would not take it head-on again. It immediately opened its dragon mouth and spat out a purple gold light beam. Although the purple gold light beam did not destroy the demonic sword, it also greatly reduced its power. Then, the serpent punched again, and the demonic sword once again collapsed into a few petals. "You have some ability, as expected of a mutant dragon. But if this is all you have, you are far from being my opponent. I advise you be sensible and retreat. After I deal with your master, you can follow me." Black Lotus said threateningly when he saw that the demonic sword could not do anything to the serpent. The serpent did not open its mouth to speak. It only swung its tail and sent a divine dragon tail whip toward Black Lotus. The divine dragon's tail whip was also a dragon clan battle skill. It was not an ordinary physical attack. When the dragon's tail was swung, everything in the space where the dragon's tail passed through became motionless. The dense purple gold light also completely enveloped the dragon's tail. "You don't know what's good for you." Black Lotus let out an angry curse. Then, Black Lotus's entire body shone with demonic light, and a black handprint slapped out. The black handprint and the purple gold dragon tail met in the blink of an eye. Then, black light and purple gold light burst out at the same time. The powerful force caused the blood annihilation demonic formation to shake. For a moment, Black Lotus and the serpent that had just awakened fought fiercely. However, it seemed that they were evenly matched. Under the influence of their battle, the blood annihilation demonic formation could not attack Shaolin Yu too strongly. In addition, the golden shield of Broken Horn and the 6 demon suppressing immortal orbs could provide protection for Shaolin Yu. Shaolin Yu already had time to recover. In front of the altar in the depths of the Black Blood Demon's encampment, the Devil's sect master frowned. Several elders had sent word that if Black Lotus and the dragon continued to fight, the blood annihilation demonic formation would not be able to continue. After all, Great Elder Liu was not present. It would be difficult for these elders to fully control the demonic formation. Most importantly, Shaolin Yu was quickly recovering. If they waited any longer, even if the demonic formation could still be maintained, the previous efforts of the demonic formation would be in vain. "We can't give him any more time to recover. Xianer, you go in as well. The elders will use the demonic formation to help you activate the demon fetus secret technique." The Devil's sect master made up his mind to instruct his daughter after some consideration. Princess Mononoke Xianer had been waiting for a long time. She was the key to capturing Black Lotus. At this point, although she was still a little uncertain, she could only brace herself and enter the demonic formation. After entering the demonic formation, Xianer, with the cooperation of several Devil Sect elders, smoothly made her way to Shaolin Yu. She did not continue to say those insignificant words. Instead, she sat down cross-legged with her eyes closed. Then, she began to chant an incantation. Her 10 slender fingers rapidly formed a seal. Xiao Yu, who was controlling the immortal treasure to resist while recovering his power, suddenly felt a strange movement in his body. After carefully sensing it, he realized that the demon fetus, which had been lying quietly in his dantian, had suddenly opened its eyes. Its eyes were a little dazed, as if it had completely lost its mind. After a few moments, the demon fetus's eyes gradually became clear. Then, it directly pounced on Xiao Yu's chaotic nascent soul. The demon fetus's strange movement caused Xiao Yu to turn pale with fright. He hurriedly ordered the chaotic nascent soul to spit out chaotic primordial fire to resist. The demon fetus did not resist the chaotic primordial fire. It just charged straight at it. However, when the chaotic primordial fire burned the demon fetus, Xiao Yu felt as if his own body was being burned. An excruciating pain spread through his entire body. Moreover, this pain also affected the deepest part of his soul. This demon fetus is indeed closely related to me. Hurting him is equivalent to hurting myself. After understanding this, Xiao Yu could only order the chaotic nascent soul to stop releasing the chaotic primordial fire. This was because if this continued, even if he could burn the demon fetus, he would also die. Not far away, Princess Mononoke also heaved a sigh of relief when the chaotic primordial fire stopped. This was because she could also feel the pain. However, it was much less than Xiao Yu's. If Xiao Yu really destroyed the devil fetus, he would die, and so would the daughter of the devil sect, Jin Xian'er. Not only Princess Mononoke and Xiao Yu, but even Ling Er, who was outside the Black Blood Forest, also felt the pain when the demon fetus was being burned by the chaotic primordial fire. Moreover, her degree of pain was no different from Xiao Yu's. Without waiting for Xiao Yu to call for backup, Ling Er directly entered the Black Blood Forest. She quickly rushed towards the Black Blood Demon's base. Without the chaotic primordial fire's protection, the demon fetus very easily approached the chaotic nascent soul. Then it directly pounced on it and started tearing at it with large bites. Xiao Yu knew that Princess Mononoke was using a secret technique to kill him. Fortunately, he let go and let the chaotic nascent soul and the demon fetus tear at each other. Chapter 202. At this moment, his soul and body were almost completely separated. Xiao Yu knew that he was done for. His first thought was to release the frosty soul heavenly silkworm as well. Then, he removed the master recognition between the frosty soul heavenly silkworm and the serpent devourer of heaven, returning their freedom. These two pets had followed him for many years and suffered a lot. Xiao Yu wouldn't let them die with him. Even now, Xiao Yu didn't regret coming to the Black Blood Demon because he would have to face this demon fetus sooner or later. The backlash from the demon fetus was unavoidable, unless he became a slave to the Black Blood Demon in the future. Ling Er had just entered the Black Blood Forest, but at this moment she felt the same as Xiao Yu. Her soul seemed to be getting further and further away from her, and gradually it no longer belonged to her. Her movements immediately stopped. This feeling of the soul and body being separated by two different spaces had been maintained. But strangely, Xiao Yu could still feel the existence of his soul and body. He just couldn't control them. Bastard, your master is about to die. Are you still going to stubbornly resist? The person in the Black Lotus could naturally see Xiao Yu's situation and immediately shouted at the serpent devourer of heaven proudly. The serpent was still able to determine its master's situation through its mental connection with Xiao Yu. Unfortunately, that mental connection had completely disappeared. Although its intelligence wasn't very high, it knew that its master had removed the master recognition with it. It also knew that its master didn't want to implicate it. This made the devourer of heaven very grateful. For many years, it didn't feel like it had done much for its master, but relied on everything its master had provided to reach its current level. Even if the master recognition was removed, it would still treat Shaoling Yu as its master and follow him forever. Roar! The serpent let out an earth-shattering dragon roar, and the purplish-gold light around its body became even stronger. Heavy and incomprehensible syllables came out of its mouth, and every syllable could shake the space. Innate divine ability? You want to use your innate ability in front of me? No way. The black lotus instantly disintegrated. The sky was filled with black petals and black demonic flames. In an instant, the space around the snake was completely sealed, and at the original location of the black lotus, there was a tall shadow floating with his hands behind his back. His expression was cold, and his eyes were slightly narrowed, like a peerless expert looking down on the world. This was the ancient devil that had been hiding in the black lotus demonic treasure. However, from the outside, he looked more like an influential figure who had been in a high position for a long time. Although the body of the serpent devourer of heaven was incomparably huge, at this time, there was no trace of it at all. There was only a rolling and roaring demonic flame in its place. Vaguely, a purple-gold radiance could be seen flashing out, and a dragon's roar could be heard. As for the eye-soul, heavenly silkworm, it was still a snow-white ball. Its reaction had been relatively slow, and it probably hadn't figured out the situation yet. After the chaotic nascent soul was devoured by the demonic fetus, Shaoling Yu felt that his soul had already drifted into a different world. His sixth demon, suppressing immortal orbs and golden shield of broken horn, lost control, and their radiance gradually dimmed. Then, they no longer provided protection for Shaoling Yu's body. However, at this time, the Blood Nightmare demonic formation's attack on Shaoling Yu's body immediately stopped. This was because the ancient devil had said that he wanted this body. The demonic sect elders controlling the demonic formation didn't dare to lightly harm this body. In the eyes of all the demonic sect cultivators, Shaoling Yu had already been controlled by the demonic fetus secret technique, and there was no way he could make a comeback. However, Princess Mononoke Xian'er, who was using the demonic fetus secret technique, was even more nervous than Shaoling Yu. This was because her demonic fetus secret technique felt powerless. She had already used all her strength, but she could only go so far. She couldn't continue. Under normal circumstances, the demonic fetus should have refined the opponent's chaotic nascent soul's energy, and then come out of the opponent's body. Then, the cultivator using the demonic fetus secret technique would use a secret technique to erase the opponent's consciousness and completely refine the opponent's soul power. Only then would the demonic fetus secret technique be considered complete. However, it was only halfway through. This demonic fetus secret technique was actually an evil technique that implanted a demonic fetus in someone's body. After a period of time, when the person achieved great success, the demonic fetus secret technique would be completely stripped of the person's cultivation results. Many years ago, some of the demonic sect cultivators used this demonic fetus secret technique to rapidly increase their strength. Cultivators who were implanted with the demonic fetus secret technique were like pigs and cows in a pen. Once they were fattened up, it was time for them to be slaughtered. However, at this point, Princess Mononoke couldn't continue using this secret technique. This was because the demonic fetus secret technique was too powerful. Although the demonic fetus secret technique could devour it, it was very slow to refine it. At this rate, the demonic fetus secret technique wouldn't be able to digest the powerful energy within a few hundred years. Princess Mononoke and the other demonic sect cultivators didn't know that Shaoling Yu cultivated the chaotic energy. After some thought, Princess Mononoke bit her lip and skipped the step of refining the demonic fetus secret technique. She directly released the demonic fetus secret technique. This time, there were no surprises. Under the control of Xian'er's secret technique, the demonic fetus secret technique floated out of Shaoling Yu's head. First, I'll erase his soul consciousness. No matter how powerful he is, he'll still die. With this thought, Xian'er changed the incantation and the seal. She wanted to use the secret technique to erase his soul consciousness. However, the demonic fetus secret technique alone wasn't enough to erase his soul consciousness. After all, the demonic fetus secret technique wasn't made of spiritual energy. This step required Xian Er's own soul to enter the demonic fetus secret technique. Then the demonic fetus secret technique would refine the demonic fetus secret technique. During the refining process, the demonic fetus secret technique wouldn't be able to retaliate. It would only be refined slowly, no matter how powerful the demonic fetus secret technique was. Once the demonic fetus secret technique was activated, it couldn't be stopped midway. Otherwise, Xian Er would be in danger of being devoured by the demonic fetus secret technique. This was why she skipped the step of refining the demonic fetus secret technique instead of stopping the secret technique. There was no turning back. Xian Er, who was also putting all her eggs in one basket, immediately let her soul out of her body. Waves of soul power that were about to condense into water droplets all surged into the space between the devil fetus eyebrows. However, what shocked Xian Er was that there were two spiritual auras in the demonic fetus secret technique. They clearly didn't belong to the same cultivator. What was going on? When did the demonic fetus secret technique devour another cultivator's soul? Princess Mononoke's Xian Er's soul was immediately stunned. Although the demonic fetus secret technique was magical, it had always been a demonic fetus controlling a cultivator. The secret technique had never mentioned how to deal with the demonic fetus secret technique if there were two cultivator souls in it. No wonder I always felt that there was something wrong with the demonic fetus. So this is where the abnormality lies. What should I do now? Xian Er didn't know what to do. However, she had already activated the demonic fetus secret technique. She had to persevere. At this point, even her spiritual energy couldn't retreat. Of course, even if her spiritual energy was still outside her body, she couldn't stop the secret technique. She could only brace herself and continue. Unless she already knew about the situation in the demonic fetus and didn't activate the secret technique, she would be spared. There were two spiritual auras in the demonic fetus secret technique. One was released by a colorful golden pearl, while the other was released by an almost completely transparent spiritual energy in liquid form. Judging from the spiritual auras, it was obvious that the golden pearl was of a higher grade. I'll refine the weaker one first. After thinking for a moment, Xian Er controlled her spiritual energy and pounced on Ling Er's spiritual energy. Anyone would have made the same choice at this moment. When they didn't know what to do, they would often choose the easy option first and then the difficult one. They would take it one step at a time. Refining Ling Er's spiritual energy wasn't too difficult. Xian Er only used 4 hours to complete the process. However, she never expected that just as she refined the spiritual energy, her spiritual energy would be controlled by the secret technique and return to her body. Originally, at this stage of the secret technique, the demonic fetus should have returned to her body. However, because the demonic fetus hadn't completely refined Xiao Lingyu's chaotic energy, and Xian Er had skipped this step, only her spiritual energy that had devoured Ling Er's spiritual energy returned. The demonic fetus still had to continue refining the chaotic energy. However, at this stage, the demonic fetus secret technique had ended. Xiao Lingyu's spiritual energy hadn't been refined. After the secret technique ended, the demonic fetus stopped refining the chaotic energy. Xian Er could no longer control the demonic fetus. She could only use the secret technique once on a demonic fetus. After the secret technique ended, Xiao Lingyu immediately felt that his spiritual energy was finally connected to his body again. With just a thought, the demonic fetus returned to his dantian. He was delighted to find that the demonic fetus was now completely under his control. The demonic fetus originally contained an enormous amount of energy. After devouring a large amount of chaotic energy from Xiao Lingyu's chaotic nascent soul, it could now be considered a chaotic demon nascent soul. It was now Xiao Lingyu's chaotic demon nascent soul. Xiao Lingyu's intuition told him that his power had increased by more than 10 times. He was almost at the peak of the late stage of the chaotic convergence period. His condition had reached an unprecedented peak. He had complete control over his spiritual energy. Large amounts of life essence from the demonic fetus continuously flowed into his body. He couldn't help but moan in pleasure. Waves of domineering, vigorous, and sinister demonic chi surged through the blood-engulfing demonic formation. Just these waves of demonic chi were enough to make the blood-engulfing demonic formation shake. Neither the ferocious creatures nor the blood-colored dermic seals could pass through these waves of demonic chi to get close to Shaoling Yu. Princess Mononoke Xian Heir was dumbfounded. All the energy in the demonic fetus should have belonged to her. The Devil Sect Master and the other Devil Sect elders were also dumbfounded. They had thought that this was a foolproof plan, but it had turned out like this. Even the illusory figure in the Black Lotus stared at them with furrowed brows. He couldn't understand why the demonic fetus secret technique had ended up like this. What a bunch of trash, the illusory figure cursed. He waved his hand and withdrew his Black Lotus, wrapping it around his body. After the Black Lotus closed, he flew out of the formation. You can't leave this time. Chapter 203. The Black Lotus had just flown less than 100 feet when it was hit by the mutant seal. Suddenly, the Black Lotus, which was not inferior to a top-grade immortal treasure, disintegrated after an explosion. Dozens of black petals sputtered in all directions, and at the place where the Black Lotus magic treasure was, the shadow of the fierce demon appeared in a very sorry state. However, even if it was the fierce demon of the ancient cultivation world, under such circumstances, it was no longer as brave as it was in the past. It also did not have the slightest bit of the momentum and dignity of an expert. Its protective magic treasure was destroyed, and it immediately prepared to continue fleeing without looking back. If this ancient demon recovered half of its strength, or even a tenth of it, it would not be so sorry in front of Shaoling Yu. However, it had been suppressed for too many years, and it had not been long since it broke out of the seal, so it was impossible for it to recover much of its strength. Shaoling Yu still did not move at all. With a thought, the 6 demons suppressing immortal orbs flew out at an extremely fast speed. After a breath of time, they surrounded the illusory demon and cast a divine light barrier to seal it. The shadow of the fierce demon was very afraid of the sacred light shield of the demon suppressing immortal orbs. It did not dare to touch it at all, let alone rush out. It was only a remnant soul, and it had lost its protective magic treasure. Even if it had some magical power, it could only be a turtle in a jar now. The scattered petals automatically gathered together again, forming a Black Lotus-shaped magic treasure. However, its owner was completely sealed, and it could only float quietly in the air. Shaoling Yu walked in front of the Black Lotus, and with a wave of his sleeve, the Black Lotus disappeared without a trace. He then came in front of the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs and looked at the trapped, ominous demon remnant soul with contempt. He said, "I told you before, don't play with your last strand of ominous demon remnant soul, but you didn't listen. Now it's too late for regrets, right?" The remnant soul of the fierce demon was very angry, but it turned and said, "Boy, oh no, little brother, you should let this old man go this time. I'll agree to whatever conditions you have. I can teach you a lot of ancient cultivation methods, and a lot of information that you might be interested in." Shaoling Yu sneered and said, "I'm not interested in these things, and I don't want to negotiate with you. You've lived for so long, you must be tired of living. Go on your way." As his words fell, the 6 demons suppressing immortal orbs simultaneously shot out divine light, swords of the divine light barrier. The wails of pain emitted from the soul continued, and the phantom gradually became more illusory. It was a remnant soul to begin with. If it could withstand such an attack from a supreme-grade immortal artifact, it would only take a few breaths of time before the remnant soul of the primordial devil was completely annihilated. After putting away the 6 demons suppressing immortal orbs and the puppets, Shaoling Yu arrived in front of the Devourer of Heaven. At this moment, the experts of the Black Blood Demon and Princess Mononoke Xian Heir finally regained their senses. The Blood Nightmare demonic formation once again exploded with power. Unfortunately, whether it was the evil spirits or the blood-colored seals, they were all swept away by Xiao Lingyu's aura when they got close to him. They were completely useless. The Devourer of Heaven was injured, but this time was different from the past. In the past, even if it was injured, it didn't make any outstanding contributions. This time, it helped Xiao Lingyu stall the primordial devil at a critical moment. The icy soul, heavenly silkworm, seemed to have just recovered. Although Xiao Lingyu had already removed its relationship with it, it still floated on Xiao Lingyu's shoulder, looking very obedient and cute. It seems that the black blood demon has no need to continue existing in the cultivation world. After Xiao Lingyu adapted to his body, he smiled at Princess Mononoke and then appeared in front of her in a flash. "What do you want?" Xian Er asked nervously. "What do I want? Your black blood demon has been chasing me for a long time, and you almost took away my cultivation. What do you think I should do now that I've survived?" Xiao Lingyu asked with a cold smile. "You want to kill me?" Xian Er asked again. There were too many strange things today, so her reaction was very slow. "Oomph. Not only you, but also your entire black blood demon." As Xiao Lingyu spoke, his killing intent uncontrollably gushed out. Perhaps it was because his chaos-nascent soul had been demonized. His killing intent was much thicker than usual. "You're too arrogant. My black blood demon has been passed down for countless years. How can I be destroyed just like that? Also, if you kill me, the one whose soul I refined will also die with me." Xian Er forced herself to be calm as she spoke. "You can keep her for now, but everyone else from the demonic sect will die." After Xiao Lingyu finished speaking, he imprisoned Xian Er and turned to the serpent devourer of heaven. "I'll leave her to you. Keep an eye on her." Then he continuously performed the chaos seal, sending the mutated yin-yang fish seal that carried demonic qi in all directions. Although the Blood Nightmare demonic formation was a high-grade demonic formation, it didn't have a powerhouse like Liu controlling it. Under the bombardment of Xiao Lingyu's seals, it only lasted for the time it took to drink a cup of tea before it completely collapsed. The formation's power automatically dissipated. The blood-red fog dissipated, and everything in front of them gradually became clear. A group of black blood demon elders gathered together with pale faces. They were all in front of the altar in the depths of the demonic sect's encampment, surrounding the demonic sect's sect master. The demonic sect's sect master had been forcefully attacked by Xiao Lingyu, and they were all heavily injured. "I'm afraid the black blood demon is finished in our generation," the demonic sect's sect master said with a dispirited expression. "Sect master, let's fight it out with him. At most, we'll die." The seventh tribulation elder said agitatedly. "Fight? Fight with what? Right now, the great elder isn't in the sect, and our blood nightmare demonic formation is completely useless. Even that person has been." The demonic sect's sect master shook his head. "But we can't just watch our demonic sect be destroyed like this, right?" An elder said anxiously. Just as the demonic sect elders were burning with anxiety, Xiao Lingyu arrived outside the demonic sect's encampment because he sensed Ling Er's aura. After finding Ling Er, Xiao Lingyu's expression was very ugly because Ling Er was unconscious. Her body had been switching back and forth between reality and illusion. Upon closer inspection, he found that Ling Er had lost her vitality, and her life essence was slowly dissipating. Any cultivator, no matter how strange they were, as long as they lost their soul, their physical body could only wait for it to dissipate. Xiao Lingyu wanted to put away Ling Er's body, but unfortunately, Ling Er's body was too special. It had always existed between reality and illusion, so he couldn't take it away. Even if he wanted to protect it temporarily, there was no way. "How can I save her?" Xiao Lingyu asked Princess Mononoke Xian Er. "As long as you can swear that you won't be enemies with the demonic sect, I'll tell you the way to save her." Xian Er replied. "You don't have a right to negotiate with me now." Xiao Lingyu's 10 fingers moved in succession, and a mutated primal chaos seal was formed. Then, without any pause, he blasted the seal out. The mutated primal chaos eel's power was far greater than the previous one. It exploded in the depths of the demonic sect's encampment. The demonic sect's encampment, which was originally a hill, was immediately torn apart, and a large hole appeared in the center. This time, more than half of the Black Blood Demon's encampment had been turned into ruins. At least 1,000 low-level loose demons or Great Ascension stage experts of the demonic sect died tragically. The rest of the demonic sect's experts and disciples all flew up, staring at Shaolin Yu like frightened birds. Then, they all surrounded the demonic sect's sect master. These were the elites of the demonic sect. When they were selected by the demonic sect to be focused on training, they needed to swear eternal loyalty to the demonic sect. So even at this time, no one dared to leave. Are you going to tell me or not? Shaolin Yu asked Princess Mononoke again. Xian'er bit her red lips. Although her face was stubborn, when she saw the terrified demonic sect cultivators, as well as the many demonic sect experts, she said with certainty, "If you don't agree to stop, I won't tell you anything." Stop? When you were chasing me before, did you ever think of stopping? Now that you can't do it, you want me to stop? Is there such a logic in this world? Are you saying that only you can kill me, and I can't kill you in turn? Shaolin Yu asked with righteous indignation. In the next moment, another mutated chaotic seal was formed. Without waiting for a moment, Shaolin Yu casually sent it out. The chaotic seal whizzed out, specifically hitting the demonic sect cultivators where they were gathered. Boom! Another explosion sounded in the depths of the Black Blood Demon's encampment. Hundreds of demonic sect cultivators who didn't have time to dodge died in an instant. At this time, Shaolin Yu was more like a vicious and merciless demonic sect cultivator. He stood in the air with his hands behind his back, facing thousands of demonic sect experts alone, but not a single demonic sect cultivator dared to come up to challenge him. His long hair and clothes fluttered in the wind, and a purple gold dragon circled around his body. He was like a demon god who had descended from the 9 heavens, and he could kill all of the loose demons and Grand Ascension stage cultivators with a wave of his hand. The changes in the Black Blood Demon's encampment naturally alarmed the entire Black Blood continent. Countless demonic sect experts gathered, and they all looked at the Black Blood Demon's encampment with disbelief. Their leader, who was like a god in their hearts, had been reduced to such a pathetic state today. This was a shock to them, and they found it difficult to accept. Shaolin Yu's confrontation with thousands of demonic sect experts in the air was a little too obvious, and all of the cultivators who had rushed over could naturally see it. Everyone couldn't help but wonder, could it be that this person was the one who had reduced the Black Blood Demon to such a sorry state? Are you still not going to speak? My patience is limited, Shaolin Yu said to Xian'er again. Tears welled up in Xian'er's eyes as she cursed herself for provoking such a jinx. After a short while, she sighed and said, "It's not that I don't want to speak, but there's nothing I can do." Her spiritual consciousness has already been erased. Unless a new soul is implanted in her body, she won't be able to come back to life. Implanting a new soul? What's the difference between that and being possessed? Shaolin Yu was even more enraged. He let loose a soft cry, and 6 demonic immortal orbs flew out in all directions, following which 6 explosions sounded from all over the demonic sect's encampment. Chapter 204. In the past, no matter how difficult it was for Shaolin Yu to be hunted down, the people around him, as well as his own pets, did not suffer any losses. Even if they were slightly injured at the time, they could recover later and continue to improve. Thus, even when Shaolin Yu suffered losses and hardships, he never did anything too extreme. It was rare for him to feel uncontrollable killing intent and anger boiling in his chest. However, this time was different. Ling Er's soul had been destroyed, and there was nothing he could do to reverse the situation. Although Ling Er didn't speak much and didn't express his thoughts, he had always been loyal to Shaolin Yu. In times of danger, he had helped him several times. Shaolin Yu already saw him as a comrade and wasn't completely emotionless. Furthermore, Ling Er had essentially died in place of Shaolin Yu. If Ling Er's soul hadn't been in the devil fetus, Xiao Lingyu's soul would have been destroyed by now, and his cultivation over the years would have gone to someone else. At this time, Princess Mononoke told Xiao Lingyu that she had no way of saving Ling Er. Xiao Lingyu was naturally furious. After the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs were sent out, they didn't return. Instead, under Xiao Lingyu's control, they each guarded an area and surrounded the black blood demon experts who had gathered together. Today, you will all be buried with Ling Er. The corners of Xiao Lingyu's mouth curled into a cruel sneer. His hands formed the chaotic seal again. Stop! When the daughter of the devil sect shouted this sentence, the chaotic seal with devil chi had already been blasted out, and hundreds of devil sect, loose devils, or Deshang stage cultivators with weaker cultivation base were blown to death. Xiao Lingyu looked coldly at Princess Mononoke and asked with glowing eyes, "What? You have something to say? Enough people have died today. My devil sect has also suffered a great loss. I hope that you can be lenient and don't be too ruthless. I can understand that you want to take revenge, but now that the devil sect has become like this, can't you vent your anger?" Princess Mononoke said emotionally, "Haha, you have only yourselves to blame. Don't say that I'm ruthless. You should have thought of this when you chased after me." Xiao Lingyu glanced at Xian then said, "Don't worry, you're one of the main culprits. You were also the one who chased after me. You were also the one who planted the devil fetus in me and killed Ling Er." As he said this, Xiao Lingyu waved his hand and sent out another primal chaos seal, and several hundred more devil sect cultivators died on the spot. At this time, there were already devil sect disciples who couldn't resist the threat of death and fled out of the encampment. Unfortunately, with the obstruction of the devil-suppressing immortal orb, they couldn't leave at all unless their cultivation was above the 6th tribulation. However, the loose devils above the 6th tribulation were now by the devil sect's sect master's side. Without the sect master's order, they didn't dare to leave easily, because the devil sect held their lives in their hands. "Let's fight it out with him." A devil sect elder couldn't stand it anymore. The other party clearly wanted to kill them all. Even if they didn't fight with their lives, they wouldn't be able to keep their lives in the end. They might as well fight it out. At least they could die with a bang. However, as soon as the devil sect elder, who was only at the 6th tribulation, rushed out, Xiao Lingyu flashed in front of him. Before he could do anything, Xiao Lingyu had already kicked his lower abdomen. The cultivator's body didn't fly out because Xiao Lingyu used too much strength. His body directly exploded at the tip of Xiao Lingyu's foot. Even the devil infant in his dantian didn't have time to appear before it was shattered. "Thief, kill us all if you have the ability." Another elder rushed out, but after him, the other devil sect elders who were originally gathered in front of the devil sect's sect master all followed. "It's easier than killing them one by one if you send yourselves to me." Xiao Lingyu had a disdainful expression. His body flashed, and in the next moment he directly killed his way into the enemy's crowd. Without the 9 tribulations here, Xiao Lingyu was simply invincible. He was like a tiger rushing into a flock of sheep. One by one, the devil sect elders exploded and died under his punches and kicks. Even the 9 tribulations would only die if they faced Xiao Lingyu now without a particularly powerful magic treasure, let alone these loose devils who hadn't even reached the 9 tribulations. In less than 10 breaths of time, none of the devil sect elders around Xiao Lingyu were floating in the air. Only his lonely figure and a strong smell of blood remained in the air. Today, the black blood demon was even more miserable than the Tai immortal sect. Not only was the encampment completely destroyed, even the elders who could be considered experts were killed, leaving only Li Yu. Even if they could still struggle at death's door in the future, they would definitely be destroyed within 1,000 years. And that Li Yu was also the person that Xiao Lingyu swore to kill. I shouldn't have. The devil sect leader saw the experts of the devil sect fall one by one. In his grief, he actually slapped his own head, and then his body exploded. As the devil sect leader, he knew that it was impossible for anyone to survive. The other party had no reason to let him go. Seeing that the devil sect, which was at its peak, was about to be destroyed in his own hands, he could only choose to atone for his sins with death, rather than die in front of the other party. Father, no! Tears welled up in Princess Mononoke's eyes. Unfortunately, she could only shout, but she couldn't move at all. The rest of you disperse. Xiaoling Yu looked at the trembling devil sect disciples, waved his hand, and took back the 6 devil-suppressing immortal pearls, and then said, the Black Blood Demon had already received a very severe punishment. Although Xiaoling Yu's heart was still surging with killing intent, he gradually calmed down and didn't want to kill anymore. The devil sect cultivators all felt as if they had been pardoned, and all of them fled for their lives without looking back. Although they had made an oath when they entered the devil sect, the devil sect had already been destroyed, and the sect leader and many elders had already died. Naturally, they were no longer bound by that oath. After all, swearing loyalty didn't mean that they had to die at such a time. Everyone in the Black Blood Forest, you have 10 minutes to leave. Otherwise, you'll be killed without mercy. Xiaoling Yu's voice was very clear, and it shook the entire Black Blood Forest. The devil sect cultivators who heard this had a great change in expression, and then they retreated out of the Black Blood Forest at full speed. To be able to single-handedly destroy the powerful Black Blood Devil sect, these Devil Dao cultivators did not dare to go against his will. Take Binger for a stroll in the forest. If anyone doesn't listen and doesn't leave, just kill them. Xiaoling Yu instructed the Serpent Devourer of Heaven, then brought Princess Mononoke and Ling Er's bodies into the ruins of the Black Blood Demon's encampment. At this point, Xiaoling Yu had no need to hide from those so-called top experts of the cultivation world, so he didn't leave this place. He wanted to wait here for those experts to come over. I'll give you one more chance. If you still can't give me a satisfactory answer, don't waste your time. Not to mention that I don't have a way. Even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Without waiting for Xiaoling Yu to finish speaking, Princess Mononoke unyieldingly continued, if you want to kill me, then kill me. I'm not a coward who's afraid of death. Since that's the case, I can only take the last resort. After Xiaoling Yu finished speaking, he pointed a finger at Princess Mononoke's forehead. Then, his tyrannical soul energy surged into Xian Er's mind and completely enveloped her soul. After searching her soul, Xiaoling Yu directly erased her soul consciousness. In Xian Er's soul memories, there was indeed no way to save Ling Er. Xiaoling Yu didn't need to continue entangling with Xian Er. Directly eliminating her would be the most convenient. Since I can't save the original Ling Er, I can only create a new Ling Er. Xiaoling Yu muttered to himself for a moment. Then he swept out Xian Er's soul and sent in a Ling Er's mind. After an hour, Xiaoling Yu finally withdrew his soul energy and began to wake quietly. 3 days later, Ling miraculously woke up. However, when she woke up, her eyes were empty and her face was expressionless. She looked around blankly. Xiaoling Yu had used the possession technique to revive Ling Er. However, her consciousness was completely blank. She didn't know who she was or what her past was. Fortunately, Princess Mononoke had refined Ling Er's soul. Otherwise, the possession technique wouldn't have been completed. After all, Ling Er's body was too unique. Not all kinds of souls could adapt to and possess her body. Your name is Ling Er. You're cultivated from a mutated, illusory spirit grass. You have a very powerful devouring ability. Normally, you rely on devouring illusory spirits to increase your strength. Your body can freely switch between reality and illusion. When you're in an illusory state, you can ignore all physical attacks. As long as your soul isn't destroyed, you're as good as immortal. You'll have to follow me forever. I'll treat you like a sister. You can't betray me in the slightest. To Xiaoling Yu's surprise, he waited in the ruins of the Black Blood Demon's encampment for 2 whole years. Those so-called top experts of the self-cultivator realm still hadn't come. Even they have times when they're afraid. Xiaoling Yu sneered and left the Black Blood continent. The Serpent Devourer of Heaven and the Frosty Soul Heavenly Silkworm also voluntarily returned to Xiaoling Yu's Spirit Beast pouch. However, Xiaoling Yu didn't ask them to acknowledge him as their master. It wasn't that Li Yu and the others didn't hate Shaoling Yu and didn't want to kill Shaoling Yu anymore. However, when they heard that Shaoling Yu had also destroyed the Black Blood Demon, they were all terrified. The Demon Kings all returned to the demon realm. Naturally, those experts from other races didn't have the guts to look for Shaoling Yu again. Of the group of experts who were originally hunting Shaoling Yu, only the homeless Li Yu and Geng Jia were left. The two of them hated Shaoling Yu to the core. Although they weren't willing to give up the hunt, they knew that they couldn't kill Shaoling Yu with just the two of them. If they rashly went over, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Brotherly, what should the two of us do now? Don't tell me we're going to hide and wait to ascend to the immortal realm? Geng Jia asked Li Yu on a nameless planet. If you're really afraid, then find a place to hide, Li Yu said with a gloomy face. Geng Jia shook his head bitterly and said, It's not that I'm afraid. That kid really isn't someone we can fight against. If we can't fight against him, then is he invincible in the self-cultivator realm? Li Yu continued, Is there anyone in the self-cultivator realm who can kill him? Geng Jia asked curiously. Yes, but that person might not be willing to help us, Li Yu replied with certainty. Who is it? Who is he? Geng Jia asked again. Chapter 205. After leaving the Black Blood continent, Shaoling Yu found an uninhabited planet and recuperated for a few years. His main purpose was to let his chaos demon nascent soul fuse more thoroughly and to give the new Ling some time to digest everything about him. A few years passed quickly. One day, Shaoling Yu suddenly opened his eyes and murmured, In at most 100 years, I will ascend to the immortal realm. Before a cultivator ascended to the immortal realm, they would have this feeling in their heart for no reason. They could roughly estimate the date of their ascension. In these few years, the Ling had more or less familiarized himself with his body and soul. He also gradually mastered the various divine powers that he possessed. His overall strength was stronger than before. The previous Ling did not have much consciousness and memory. What was erased was only the time with Shaoling Yu. In fact, it was not a big deal. Moreover, when the previous Ling had just gained consciousness, he had resisted Shaoling Yu and tried to destroy Shaoling Yu's soul. The new Ling would definitely be loyal to Shaoling Yu. The dragon pearl of the five-clawed golden dragon was still in the serpent's stomach. It was slowly being absorbed and digested by the serpent devourer of heaven. The serpent devourer of heaven's strength was also improving rapidly. However, it had also passed the heavenly tribulation and would soon ascend to the immortal realm. Now that Shaoling Yu had reached the peak of the late stage of the chaos convergence period, it was indeed not suitable for him to stay in the immortal realm. This was because the cultivators in this realm were no threat to him. He had to go to a higher realm to continue improving. However, before he ascended, Shaoling Yu still had a few things to take care of. First, he had to continue searching for his parents. Second, he had to find Li Yu for revenge. Third, he had to see Anya again. Shaoling Yu planned to see Anya again last. After all, Anya was easy to find, and looking for her parents and looking for Li Yu could be done at the same time. After all, to Shaoling Yu, these two things were like looking for a needle in a haystack. In the following days, Shaoling Yu began to teleport continuously. Every time she arrived at a cultivation continent, she would take out the tracking spirit mirror to search for traces of her parents and Li Yu. 2 of the 3 top clans in the cultivation world had already been destroyed, causing the closest cultivation world to be very unstable. Everywhere, there were surging winds and clouds. The forces of the Immortal Path and the Devil Path, both large and small, were busy fighting for the leadership position. This was especially true for the Demonic Path. Their battles were extremely cruel. At the slightest turn of events, large and small forces would be completely annihilated, resulting in countless casualties. For demonic Dao cultivators, whoever became a recognized top powerhouse would have the authority to control the entire demonic Dao territory. This was something that no powerful demonic Dao sect was willing to give up easily. On the other hand, the Immortal Path was vast and boundless. There were countless sects of various sizes. There were even dozens of sects that were second only to the Tai immortal sect in strength. They either merged to strengthen their forces or roped in powerful cultivators to prepare for a high-profile rise to the top before the demonic Tao had a result. The immortal path had already settled down. But what everyone did not expect was that in the end, the publicly recognized top powerhouse of the immortal path was actually a shop. Xiaoling Yu also knew this shop. It was the Kunlun Rare Treasures shop. The reason why the Kunlun Rare Treasure shop could become the top powerhouse of the immortal path was that their grand elder, Sima Zhen, had just successfully passed the 9th heavenly tribulation and became a top powerhouse of the immortal path. With this 9th tribulation powerhouse holding the fort, naturally, no one dared to challenge them. The two 9th tribulation powerhouses, Gengjia and Liu, were about to ascend to the immortal world. They no longer had the intention to support any sect to become the top powerhouse. They also did not have the time. What they wanted to do most now was to kill Xiaoling Yu before they ascended. After searching for more than 10 years, Xiaoling Yu did not know how many cultivation continents he had visited, but he could not find any traces of his parents or Li Yu. But he did manage to find many of his former classmates or college classmates, as well as childhood playmates. Those he could find were all relatively young people during the end of the earth. None of them were over 40 years old. From this, he could almost conclude that only the young people were lucky enough to escape the calamity. As for not being able to find Li Yu, Xiaoling Yu could actually understand. Now that he was so powerful, as long as Li Yu did not deliberately seek death, he would definitely hide on an uninhabited planet and wait to ascend. The immortal path was vast and boundless. Xiaoling Yu could not possibly search those planets one by one. As a result, searching for his parents and Li Yu became an almost impossible task. After persevering for a while, Xiaoling Yu felt that he could not waste any more time, so he decided to make another trip to the chaotic astral sea. As for those powerhouses of the demon clan who had once hunted him down, Xiaoling Yu did not take it to heart. After all, they did not get what they wanted and did not cause him much losses. The most important thing was that they had hunted him down because he had snatched the dragon pearl of their 5-clawed golden dragon. Now that they were very sensible and did not come looking for trouble, why should he make things difficult for them? Furthermore, the strength of the demon clan in the immortal realm was also very strong. It was said that the demon clan in the lower realm could contact the immortal realm through secret channels. Xiaoling Yu did not want to bring great losses to the demon clan in the cultivation world just because of a moment of anger and then be hunted down by the demon clan in the immortal realm. Xiaoling Yu was not the kind of person who did not know when to stop. The reason why he had destroyed the Tai immortal sect and the black blood demon was that he had no choice but to do so. Secondly, they had only themselves to blame. What Xiaoling Yu did not know was that while he was looking for someone was also looking for him. The young cultivator from the immortal world naturally knew about the destruction of the Tai immortal sect and the black blood demon. He also knew about the existence of Xiaoling Yu. After some careful investigation, the young cultivator from the immortal world found another very important clue. That was that Xiaoling Yu had been to the Seven Do continent with many top powerhouses of the immortal world. From this, he could deduce some things. He felt that it was very necessary for him to find those powerhouses of the immortal world and have a chat. That seemingly cute little girl was still following him, but it did not affect his work. Moreover, he was still unable to get rid of that little girl. After a long time, he could only choose to ignore her. The young cultivator from the immortal world first made a trip to the demon race. After a detailed discussion with a few demon kings, he was able to confirm that the problem should lie with Xiaoling Yu. Therefore, after leaving the demon race, he had been releasing his divine sense to the fullest and began a carpet search of the entire immortal world. This was nothing to a cultivator from the immortal world. However, even if he was from the immortal world, it would take a long time to search the entire immortal world with his divine sense. Fortunately, when he came down, his master did not set a deadline for this task. He had a lot of time to find someone. Gengjia and Liu did not hide. Instead, After some discussion, they were teleported to the Eight Extremities continent. The Eight Extremities continent was the territory of the Eight Extremities Sword Sect, a top-notch sect in the immortal world. However, it was not a prosperous immortal world, but an extremely desolate and large continent. It was said that the Eight Extremities continent was very prosperous in the ancient times. However, because it was so prosperous in the ancient times, the immortal world's resources had long been mined clean. Moreover, there were countless battles that took place here. The entire continent was like a ruin, desolate and bleak. Not to mention that the Eight Extremity Sword Sect had already said that no cultivator was allowed to enter the Eight Extremities continent at will. Moreover, the Eight Extremities Sword Sect also refused to allow any cultivators to come here for sightseeing or business. Even if the Eight Extremities Sword Sect opened its doors, it was likely that not many cultivators would be willing to come here to enjoy the cool breeze. Unlike many sects in the immortal world, the Eight Extremities Sword Sect's territory did not have any rich material resources, nor did it have any immortal stone veins. Sword cultivators cultivated sword elemental energy. This kind of energy could only be obtained through years of bitter cultivation. Relying on external forces to improve was not the style of a sword cultivator. Sword cultivators were very lonely throughout their lives. They were infatuated with sword cultivation and had always been with the sword. They used their hearts to comprehend sword Tao, so they were very proud. In their hearts, they believed that one sword could break 10,000 techniques. Therefore, sword cultivators' cultivation realm was the most stable. In addition, the sword Tao techniques and sword elemental energy that they cultivated were very powerful in terms of attack. Therefore, everyone generally believed that sword cultivators were invincible in a battle of the same level. Moreover, surpassing levels to challenge sword cultivators was synonymous with sword cultivators. However, although sword cultivators were powerful, very few people were willing to cultivate sword Tao. This was because the progress was too slow and it was extremely easy to be trapped in a realm for a long time without being able to break through. To be able to achieve astonishing attainments in sword Tao, not only did one need to have patience and perseverance to endure the lonely years, one also needed to have excellent perception to understand sword intent, sword force, and other very elusive things. It was also because of this that the Eight Extremity Sword Sect had always been closed off to the outside world and did not allow disciples to easily go out. There were only a few hundred Eight Extremities Sword Sect cultivators in a huge Eight Extremities continent. How could it not seem desolate? The Eight Extremities continent's interstellar teleportation array was still there. After all, when the Eight Extremities Sword Sect cultivators went out, they also had to take the teleportation array. However, there was a sword sect elder who had already passed 6 tribulations guarding the teleportation array. If an unrelated cultivator was teleported here, they would be asked to leave by him. The Eight Extremities Sword Sect had not received guests for hundreds of years. However, today they had received 2 guests that they had to greet. They were Gungjia and Liu. The Eight Extremities Sword Sect could refuse ordinary cultivators, but they were not arrogant enough to ask a 9 tribulations expert to leave. Fellow Taoists, may I know the reason for your visit? After the 2 of them walked out of the teleportation array, the 6 tribulations Sword Sect elder asked politely, "We would like to see your sect master." Liu replied indifferently. The sect master's cultivation area is 15 million kilometers southeast from here. Fellow Taoists, you can go there by yourselves. After the 6 tribulations elder responded, he returned to his original place and closed his eyes to meditate. He had no intention of leading the way for the 2 of them. Gungjia and Liu knew the temper of sword cultivators, so they did not care about anything and immediately flew southeast. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the 2 9 tribulations experts stopped at the entrance of a valley. Chapter 206. The Sword Pool was the place where the sect masters of the 8 poles sword sect cultivated. Only the sect masters were qualified to enter. Other sect masters, even ninth tribulation experts, had no right to enter. At the entrance of the valley, the two ninth tribulation experts came to the side of the boulder with strange looks on their faces. The boulder was about 300 feet high and no less than 100 feet wide. It looked more like a small stone mountain. What attracted the two ninth tribulation experts was not the boulder itself, but the two bold words engraved on the boulder. Sword pool. These two words could be said to be written in a flamboyant and vigorous manner. Just by looking at it, it gave people a feeling of being deeply immersed in it. Of course, if a mortal came here, he would naturally not be able to see the slightest secret. The higher the cultivation of the cultivator, the more he would feel that there was a lot of meaning behind these two words. For the top existences of the cultivation world, like the nine tribulations, when they looked at these two words, they felt that it seemed to contain the truth of the universe of thousands of worlds. It was as unfathomable as the vast sea of stars. After staring at it for a while longer, the two nine tribulation experts suddenly felt that there were countless, incomparably sharp sword lights coming at them. It seemed that if they stayed where they were for even a moment longer, they would be crushed into pieces by these sword lights. Therefore, Liu and Gungjia both subconsciously flew back after exclaiming in surprise. Although in fact, there was no sword light coming at them, the two nine tribulation experts each spat out a mouthful of blood after stabilizing their bodies. They looked like they had suffered a great setback. The two did not suffer much damage. It was just that their minds were in a mess just now. So, it only took them a moment to recover. Gungjia exclaimed. The senior who carved these two words has a very deep realm. It was probably carved by an ancient sword expert before the realms were divided. Liu nodded and said, Two fellow Taoists have come from afar. Please forgive me for not coming out to greet you. At this moment, an old man in a wrinkled gray robe walked out of the valley. After waving his fist, he greeted them with a smile. Being able to walk out of the sword pool, the identity of this old man was obvious. He was the sect master of the Eight Poles sword sect. Fellow Taoist, you're too polite. Liu and Gungjia immediately regained their normal expressions and responded politely. Fellow Taoists, you've come to my Eight Poles sword sect. This is a remote and desolate place, so we don't have much to offer you. The sword sect's master walked over to them and spoke courteously, yet he didn't intend to invite them into the sword pool. Only the sword sect's sect master could enter the sword pool. Even the experts of the sword sect couldn't enter, let alone people from other sections. Right after he finished speaking, the sword sect leader waved his sleeve, and a stone table and 3 stone stools appeared before the 3 of them. The cultivators of the 8 extreme sword sect had always been bitterly cultivating. Moreover, there were no outsiders in the 8 extremes continent, so they didn't need to build any immortal caves, nor did they have any rooms to entertain guests. Fellow Taoists, please take a seat. As the sword sect master spoke, he brought out a pot of fragrant tea and a few jade teacups. After the tea was filled, the sword sect's master asked, Fellow Taoists, may I know why you've come from afar? Gungjia took the teacup and spoke first. Fellow Taoists should know about the matter between the Tai immortal sect and the Black Blood Demon, right? The sword sect's master nodded and smiled. Hee. Although I lock myself in the sword pool every day, I still know a little about such a big matter. Li took a sip of tea and asked, Then fellow Taoist should also know about Shaoling Yu, right? The sword sect's master touched the teacup with his finger and said with a calm expression, I know a little about her. We came here to talk about this Shaoling Yu. Hee, you two fellow Taoists can't be thinking of involving my 8 Poles sword sect in the dispute between you two, right? You all know that our 8 Poles sword sect rarely interferes with the matters of the cultivation world, and we don't want to cause any unnecessary trouble. The sword sect's master didn't wait for Liu to finish speaking and continued with a smile. Fellow Taoist, you're on. This time, the two of us came to ask the 8 Poles sword sect to help us take revenge. This matter is related to your sword sect. Liu narrowed his eyes and said, Oh, I'd like to hear the details. The sword sect's master spoke with slight surprise. He didn't understand how this matter could be related to the 8 Poles sword sect. Fellow Taoists and the experts of the sword sect rarely travel to the cultivation world, So you probably don't know that Shaolin Yu carries an ancient divine sword. Cultivators of our sword sect aren't very interested in the treasures of others, and it's the same even if it's a divine sword. The sword sect's master continued. Fellow Taoist, there's no need to be impatient. Let me finish. Liu shook his head and said, that divine sword is called merciless. What? The sword sect's master immediately stood up when he heard this, and his expression changed drastically as he asked with disbelief, fellow Taoist, are you really sure that his divine sword is merciless? Liu was very satisfied with the sword sect's master's reaction and answered indifferently. How could I dare speak rashly about such a big matter? If it really is merciless, then it really is related to my sword sect. After the sword sect's master sat down, his expression seemed to be slightly complicated while his eyes flickered slightly. He was probably scheming something in his heart. After pondering deeply for a moment, the sword sect's master's expression returned to normal, and he said, since both of you have come to inform me of this, then I presume you're aware that merciless is a divine artifact from the ancient times. Moreover, it was personally created by the founding ancestor of my sword sect. Fundamentally speaking, merciless belongs to my eight-pole sword sect, so we ought to take it back. Of course. Geng Jia nodded in agreement. However, both of you have rather deep enmity with Shaolin Yu, so it just so happens that we can cooperate this time. I presume both of you don't have any objections, right? The sword sect's master spoke indifferently. Once it's done, merciless will belong to the eight-pole sword sect, and that kid's other treasures will belong to both of us. Liu replied in an extremely direct manner. Aside from merciless, our eight-pole sword sect won't be greedy for anything else. The sword sect's master finished his cup of tea in one gulp. Shaolin Yu, who was rushing towards the chaotic astral ocean at full speed, didn't know that after he'd successively destroyed two top-rate clans of the cultivation world, he'd become the target of the only remaining top-rate sect. There were only a few decades left before he ascended, so Shaolin Yu didn't want to waste a single second. On a cultivation continent that was relatively close to the chaotic astral ocean, Shaolin Yu had just used the tracking spirit mirror when the space beside him suddenly fluctuated, and then a young cultivator appeared by his side. A short moment later, space fluctuated once more, and an obedient little girl appeared. It's you. Shaolin Yu immediately exclaimed when he saw the little girl, because he recognized her. This little girl was the one who'd appeared on the Feiyu continent and claimed to be Jiang Lanyue's younger sister. She could be considered to have helped Shaolin Yu in the past. If it's not me, then who is it? The little girl replied unhappily. You two know each other? The young cultivator frowned and asked the little girl. We know each other, but we're not very close. The little girl first replied to the young cultivator, then said to Shaolin Yu, it's been so many years, but you haven't improved much. At this rate, when will you be able to go to the God Realm? Shaolin Yu suddenly felt a headache coming on. His rate of improvement could be said to be extremely rare in the cultivation world, but he still couldn't satisfy this little girl. However, when he thought of the fact that the other party was from the immortal realm, he didn't try to explain himself, and he wouldn't fuss about it in his heart. He should have cultivated for less than 1,000 years, and he's cultivating the primal chaos energy. It's already considered very fast for him to have such achievements. Shaolin Yu was very satisfied with the young cultivator's reply. However, the young cultivator continued, it's originally a great opportunity for him to cultivate the primal chaos energy. However, his primal chaos energy has been demonized, and he's not on the right path. I'm afraid something will happen to him sooner or later. It's already not easy for him to go to the immortal world, so it's almost impossible for him to ascend to the God Realm. This sentence made Shaolin Yu's mood, which had improved slightly, fall again. Shaolin Yu still didn't say anything because he was trying to assess the situation. These two people had appeared in front of him one after the other. It was too sudden and strange, so he had to be careful. First of all, Shaolin Yu thought that this young cultivator might also be from the God Realm. This was because he couldn't see his cultivation level at all, and he couldn't even catch a trace of his aura. Even though he was very worried, Xiaoling Yu didn't think of running away quickly. This was because he had no chance of escaping in front of this young cultivator. The difference in their strength was too great. "Hey, why are you looking for him?" the little girl asked the young cultivator. "Since you're not very familiar with him, why I'm looking for him has nothing to do with you." After the young cultivator replied, his eyes shone. With just a glance, his face darkened, and he shouted, "My master's treasure was really stolen by you. How dare you?" After shouting, the young cultivator's aura surged out and instantly sealed off a large area of the surrounding space. However, what the young cultivator didn't expect was that just as his aura sealed off the space, the little girl beside him wrinkled her nose and shouted. The originally sealed space returned to normal. The young cultivator was about to flash to Xiaoling Yu's side, but before he could do so, the little girl was already standing beside Xiaoling Yu. She even stretched out a jade-like finger and asked, "What are you trying to do? This has nothing to do with you. You'd better get out of the way." The young cultivator refused to back down. "I said it has something to do with me. If you don't explain it clearly, I won't let you touch him." The little girl stood in front of Xiaoling Yu and looked like she was going to stand up for her master. "To tell you the truth, I came to the lower realm this time on the orders of my master to retrieve his treasure. That treasure is currently in this brat's sea of consciousness," the young cultivator said with a heavy face. "Your master must be an old monster at the top of the god realm. How could he leave his treasure in the cultivation world? Don't tell me you see that he has a treasure on him and want to rob him?" The little girl said, unconvinced. "Oomph, I won't lie. If you don't get out of the way, don't blame me for being impolite." The young cultivator said a little anxiously, "Hee, I haven't fought for many years. If I'm afraid of you, I'm not your grandaunt. Do you think you can beat me?" The little girl laughed fearlessly. Chapter 207. Great Yang Sword? Your old monster Dugu's disciple? The little girl frowned slightly, seeming a little surprised. "Since you know my master, you should also know the power of the Great Yang Sword. I advise you to get out of the way quickly, lest you fall under this sacred sword at such a young age." The young cultivator said proudly, "You're really lucky. It said that old monster Dugu never accepts disciples, but he actually took a liking to you. However, no matter how powerful the Great Yang Sword is, you still have to be able to use its magical powers." The little girl first commented, but then she still didn't show any signs of fear. "Then you can give it a try." As the young cultivator spoke, that simple and unadorned sword actually trembled slightly in his hand. A clear and melodious sword sound suddenly rang out, and the runes on the sword also started to circulate like a charm, gradually becoming brighter and brighter. There's actually some skill," the little girl exclaimed in surprise, then transmitted a message to Xiaoling Yu. "I'll block him. You go first. With your cultivation level, you're about to ascend to the immortal realm. It's best if you don't get blocked by this guy before you ascend. Then you be careful." Xiaoling Yu knew that a battle of this level was simply not something she could come into contact with. She didn't even have the qualifications to watch the battle, so after reminding her, she directly turned around and left. "Thief, don't you dare leave." Seeing that Xiaoling Yu was about to leave, the young cultivator raised his sword and was about to rush over. Unfortunately, the little girl blocked his path. "Your opponent now is me. If you defeat me, it won't be too late for you to find him." As the little girl spoke, she took out a slender sword and continued, "Actually, I also practiced the sword. Since I've met old monster Dugu's disciple today, I naturally have to learn from him properly." "You also practiced the sword?" The young cultivator was a little surprised. Why? Could it be that only old monster Dugu and his disciple are allowed to practice the sword, and others are not allowed to practice the sword? The little girl said, unconvinced, "All right, since we're on the same side of the sword, then I'll exchange a few moves with you." The young cultivator said, full of fighting spirit. While the two people from the realm of the gods were sparring with their sword techniques, Xiaoling Yu teleported dozens of times before stopping. He didn't dare to go to the Chaos Star Sea again because teleportation arrays couldn't be used there. That person from the divine world's divine sense could probably cover the entire Chaos Star Sea with a thought. There was no way he could escape. After teleporting continuously for more than 3 months, Xiaoling Yu was already far away from the chaotic Star Sea before he dared to stop. I don't know if that little girl can win. If she loses, that expert from the divine realm will find me again very quickly. Xiaoling Yu thought gloomily. Apart from ascending to the celestial world, there was almost no other way out for her. However, she still had a few decades before she could ascend to the celestial world. While Xiaoling Yu was worried sick, she received a message from Anya. After using her consciousness to scan the communication spiritual pearl, Xiaoling Yu's eyes shone with a cold light. She snorted and said, "They actually dared to come and find me. This is good. I don't have to go and find them. The Eight-Pole Sword sect wants to come too. They probably want to follow in the footsteps of the Tai Immortal sect and the Black Blood Demon. 2 of the 3 old top clans have already been destroyed. I don't mind letting all the old top clans fall." With that thought, Xiaoling Yu teleported dozens of times before flying into space. He found an uninhabited planet and sat cross-legged on a barren mountain peak, quietly waiting for Gungjia, Li Yu, and the expert from the Eight-Pole Sword sect to arrive. Xiaoling Yu didn't have to wait too long. Li Yu, who had a way to track Xiaoling Yu, had already brought Gungjia and the experts from the Eight-Pole Sword sect to this nameless planet half a month later. Xiaoling Yu, who was meditating on the mountain peak, suddenly opened her eyes and stood up. She squinted her eyes and looked at the figures in front of her who were flying over at an extremely fast speed. There were quite a lot of people, exactly 10 of them. Except for Gungjia and Li Yu, the other 8 were all experts from the Eight-Pole Sword sect. I can understand why these 2 old fellows have come here. What I don't understand is that I have never interacted with your Eight-Pole Sword sect, nor do I have any enmity with you. Why have you come here with such a large force? Xiaoling Yu asked with a flat expression. Our Eight-Pole Sword sect also has no intention of becoming enemies with you. However, the divine sword behind you is something left behind by the ancestors of our Eight-Pole Sword sect. If you can return it, we will immediately return to the Eight Extremities continent. The chief of the Eight-Pole Sword sect took 2 steps forward, saying with a helpless look on his face, "Haha, you said that this merciless divine sword belongs to your Eight-Pole Sword sect. Is it yours? Call it and see if it will answer you," Xiaoling Yu said with a laugh. "Since you are unwilling to return it, we can only take it back by force," the sect master of the Eight-Pole Sword sect said in a deep voice. "So many of you have come, isn't it to snatch it by force? However, I have to remind you that although this divine sword is a treasure, it is not something that anyone can snatch. How glorious was the Tai Immortal sect and the Black Blood Demon in the past. What are they like now?" Xiaoling Yu shook her head and smiled, saying with a strange tone, "It's useless to say more. Let's do it." Li Yu seemed to be very impatient. He immediately took out his heaven-covering demonic banner, and the demonic dragon flew above his head. Gungjia shouted, and several short knives flew out one after another, overflowing with cold light. The 8 experts of the Eight-Pole Sword sect quickly spread out, standing in 8 directions around Xiaoling Yu. It seemed that they were going to set up a sword formation. Haha. The Eight-Pole Sword formation? I heard that it is very powerful. I have the honor to see it today. Xiaoling Yu had figured out the methods of Gungjia and Li Yu. These 2 Nine Tribulation experts could not pose any threat to him. He was more concerned about the sword formation formed by the 8 experts of the Eight-Pole Sword sect. The Eight-Pole Sword formation was very famous in the cultivation world. It was one of the few formations in the cultivation world that could kill a Ninth Tribulation expert. The Eight-Pole Sword sect station did not have any formations or restrictions to protect it. Once they encountered a strong enemy, they would form the Eight-Pole Sword formation to defend against the enemy. The power of the Eight-Pole Sword formation was definitely not inferior to the 9-Palace Glaze Fairy formation of the Tai Immortal sect and the Blood Nightmare demonic formation of the Black Blood Demon. It was even much stronger in terms of attack power. The experts of the Eight-Pole Sword sect dared to come because they were very confident in the Eight-Pole Sword formation. However, not to mention the experts of the Eight-Pole Sword Sect, even Gungjia and Liu did not know what level Xiao Lingyu was at now. This was because they were not present when Xiao Lingyu destroyed the Black Blood Demon. If Gungjia and Liu were present at that time, it was unknown if they would have the courage to appear in front of Xiao Lingyu again. Ling was also in front of Xiao Lingyu. She did not speak and only stared coldly at the other party. Xiao Lingyu had only heard of the Eight-Pole Sword Formation, but had never seen it before. Therefore, to be safe, he released the puppet, the Serpent Devourer of Heaven, and the Icy Soul Heavenly Silkworm. This time, not only did he want to defeat the other party, Xiao Lingyu did not want to let Gungjia and Liu leave alive again. The 8 experts of the Eight-Pole Sword Sect were all above the 6th tribulation level. Moreover, the strength of their experts could not be judged by the number of heavenly tribulations they had passed. Even a 7 tribulations sword, Dao, itinerant immortal, could directly challenge an 8th or 9th tribulation expert if their understanding of the sword Dao reached a higher level. The 2 8 tribulation experts among them had the strength to face a 9th tribulation expert alone. In addition, they had the support of the sword formation at this time. Their combat strength was undoubtedly beyond the scope of the cultivation world. If a 9 tribulation expert was trapped in the sword formation, he would lose a layer of skin even if he did not die. In a while, you guys are in charge of leaving Gungjia and Liu behind. I will deal with this sword formation. Just as Xiao Lingyu said this, the 8 experts of the Eight-Pole Sword Sect had all taken out their swords. What was surprising was that the 8 swords were all immortal weapons. Moreover, there was a supreme grade immortal sword and 3 superior grade immortal swords among them. The Eight-Pole Sword Sect had been passed down since ancient times. Although it had been developing in a low-key manner, the sect's collection was still quite astonishing. After the sword sect master shouted, the 8 immortal swords let out a heaven-shaking sword cry at the same time, constantly releasing sharp sword light. Immediately, the surroundings were completely enveloped by sword light, as if there were only swords in the entire world. The sword intent and sword force that caused one's heart to turn cold surged endlessly like raging waves, causing the entire space to boil. However, the space around Xiao Lingyu was completely unaffected. The aura he released could barely stabilize everything around him. I'll send you guys out of the sword formation first. You must leave those 2 despicable old fellows behind or directly kill them. It was also because the strength of the Serpent Devourer of Heaven had advanced by leaps and bounds, and Ling was loyal to him that he was so confident. Before the sword formation could begin its attack, Xiao Lingyu's 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs had already been activated, attacking the 6 experts of the sword sect at the same time. The Eight-Pole Sword Formation was also activated at this moment, but it split into countless sword lights to block the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs, while Xiao Lingyu blasted a mutated chaotic seal toward a certain direction. The power of the Eight-Pole Sword Formation was attracted by the demon-suppressing immortal orb, and the mutated chaotic seal's attack power was incomparably powerful, so it naturally blasted open a path without any sword light. The serpent, Icy Soul Heavenly Silkworm, Ling and the puppet took the opportunity to rush out. Xiao Lingyu could actually rush out as well, but he still wanted to experience the power of the Eight-Pole Sword Formation in the Sword Formation. Of course, the reason why he did this was because he was confident that he would definitely not be heavily injured in the Sword Formation. Seeing that Xiao Lingyu's assistant had come out and was staring at the 2 of them with an unfriendly expression, Gungjia and Liu's expressions turned gloomy. Especially after sensing the aura of the Serpent Devourer of Heaven, they realized the seriousness of the problem. We just need to defend with all our might and hold them back for a while. Once the Eight-Pole Sword Sect takes care of that brat, these existences are nothing to be afraid of. Liu narrowed his eyes and looked around, then sent a voice transmission to Gungjia. Although Gungjia's heart was filled with fear and regret, he had no choice but to continue down this path. Xiao Lingyu, who was in the formation, had already begun to receive the baptism of the Eight-Pole Sword Formation. Countless sharp sword lights fell like a storm, and the attack of each sword light was not weaker than the attack of a high-grade immortal artifact. Chapter 208. The Eight-Sword Sect experts in charge of the sword formation seem to have realized that such an attack had no effect on Shaoling Yu. In less than 20 breaths of time, they changed their moves. The sword lights that were originally surrounding Shaoling Yu all dispersed and then gathered in 8 directions, turning into 8 divine beasts. A dragon, a tiger, a phoenix, a vermilion bird, a black tortoise. As soon as the 8 divine beasts finished condensing, they all pounced towards Shaoling Yu at the same time. When they were about to reach Shaoling Yu, they turned into light swords at the same time, either slashing, slicing, or chopping. This is interesting. Shaoling Yu smiled slightly. The 6 demons suppressing immortal orbs met the 6 light swords respectively, while his fists punched out at the same time to meet the remaining 2 light swords. After a rumbling explosion, the 8 menacing light swords all turned into sword lights that filled the sky and dissipated on the spot. The 6 demons suppressing immortal orbs flew back, but their brilliance was a little dim, as if they had consumed a lot of energy. Shaoling Yu also felt pain coming from his 2 fists, but he said indifferently, "This level of attainment seems to be a little lacking. Is there anything more powerful?" The other party did not use any more powerful moves. Instead, they continuously gathered divine beasts and turned them into light swords, as if they wanted to exhaust Shaoling Yu's strength. Shaoling Yu also took out the golden shield of Broken Horn. He used the primal chaos seal to block it, but he was not injured at all. "You want to compete with me in terms of consumption? Then let's see who can take it." The other party had been attacking repeatedly, and Shaoling Yu could guess their intentions. However, he did not pay too much attention to it, because he did not believe that the 8-sword sect experts would not consume a lot of energy to maintain such a powerful sword formation. Shaoling Yu had not even used up half of his strength, but the other party had already taken the initiative to change their strategy. Shaoling Yu could guess that the other party would not be able to hold on for long. Just as the other party was about to change their move, Shaoling Yu consecutively struck out 3 mutated primal chaos seals, fiercely blasting towards the same spot. After 3 explosions, one of the sword sect's experts who were in charge of the sword formation was sent flying, and 3 arrows of blood sprayed from his mouth. Fortunately, the immortal sword circling above this sword sect expert's head only dimmed greatly in immortal light, and it couldn't help but tremble. It didn't suffer much of a heavy blow. That sword sect expert didn't wipe off the blood at the corner of his mouth. He immediately returned to his original position and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the immortal sword. Then, he used a few seals to reinforce it. Only then did the immortal sword stabilize and shine once more. However, because of this sword sect expert's sudden change, the sword move that was about to be completed could not be executed. Shaoling Yu took the opportunity to bombard the same place 3 more times. Fortunately, the person guarding that place was a top expert, like the sword sect master. Moreover, he was also protected by a top-grade immortal sword. Shaoling Yu's attack this time didn't have much effect. Shaoling Yu was in the middle of the sword formation. In addition to defending, he also had the ability to launch a rather threatening counterattack. This made the experts of the Ba-Ji sword sect realize how powerful Shaoling Yu was. They knew that this mission would not be as easy to complete as they had imagined. At the same time, their expressions became much gloomier, and at the same time, they worked even harder to activate the sword formation. The Devourer of Heaven, who was fighting fiercely outside, suddenly saw a flash of light in front of his eyes. Then, he felt waves of sharp sword intent soar into the sky. The vast and mighty power actually made his heart tremble, and his movements became much longer at this moment. The Devourer of Heaven first stopped his attack and looked to the side, and his heart trembled. At this moment, within a radius of hundreds of miles covered by the sword formation, there were 8 immortal swords suspended in midair. Each of them shone with a dazzling cold light, and the waves of sword intent were radiating from them. After a short moment, numerous rays of sword light that were like dazzling white pillars of light pierced through the sky and shot towards the depths of the sky before converging at a single point. After that, an even more dazzling and imposing sword of light slowly took form, and it emanated waves of sword intent that carried an aura of destruction. As soon as the light sword formed, it fell rapidly toward the sword formation. The tip of the light sword was aimed at Xiaoling Yu's head, and it was using the sword formation to firmly lock onto Xiaoling Yu. The power of this light sword was already a little stronger than ordinary supreme-grade immortal treasures. If it hit Xiaoling Yu without any hindrance, his body would definitely be split into 2 on the spot. The 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs whizzed out under Xiaoling Yu's control. As supreme-grade immortal treasures, they shattered the tip of the light sword. The offensive power of the blade and hilt of the light sword was actually not inferior to the tip of the sword at all. Xiaoling Yu did not have time to control the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs to return, and could only use the golden horn shield to block above his head. The golden horn shield was also blasted away, and only the hilt of the light sword was left. Xiaoling Yu used the mutated chaotic seal to receive it. Xiaoling Yu blocked the attack of this light sword with ease. After all, he had reached the peak of the chaotic convergence stage. Even in the immortal world, he could be considered a minor expert, and his level was far beyond that of the 9 tribulations cultivators in the cultivation world. However, the experts of the 8-pole sword sect knew that Xiaoling Yu was very strong, but they still dared to come. Naturally, they had something to rely on. Their 8-pole sword formation could not only kill a 9 tribulations, but as long as the opponent's strength was not far beyond that of a 9 tribulations, even if they could not kill him, they could still severely injure him. After the first light sword fell, one after another light sword fell, and Xiaoling Yu gradually found it difficult to resist. The experts of the 8-pole sword sect had something to rely on. Since Xiaoling Yu dared to wait here for them, and still dared to stay in the sword formation, he naturally had complete confidence. After the frenzied attacks of the sword formation continued for a while, Xiaoling Yu could no longer resist with the help of the 6 demon-suppressing immortal orbs and the golden horn shield. He held the unforgivable godly sword in his hand. With a thought, the demon-suppressing immortal orbs and the golden horn shield flew back and circled around Xiaoling Yu's body, while he pointed the unforgivable godly sword above his head. The light swords released by the 8-pole sword formation fiercely slammed into the unforgivable godly sword. Instantly, the sword was enveloped in sword light, and countless sword lights rapidly passed through the unforgivable godly sword and landed on Xiaoling Yu. However, the sword intent in the sword lights had already been digested by the sword intent circulating in the unforgivable godly sword. These sword lights alone could not hurt Xiaoling Yu at all. No matter how the light sword with the destruction sword essence continued to fall, it was unable to do anything to Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu did not know how to use a sword, but he only needed to raise the unforgivable godly sword high up. The unforgivable godly sword's automatic display of might on that strange planet last time had given Xiaoling Yu some inspiration. After destroying the black blood demon, he took some time to study the unforgivable godly sword. He had benefited greatly. However, studying the unforgivable godly sword did not give Xiaoling Yu any comprehension of the way of the sword, and he did not research in that direction. When the sword sect master saw this, he felt even more depressed. He could not help but feel a little regretful that he had not carefully investigated the other party's strength before coming here. However, although sword cultivators were very arrogant, a godly sword, especially one that was extremely famous in ancient times like the unforgivable godly sword, was really too tempting for them. Even if the unforgivable godly sword had not been personally forged by the sword sect's founder, the Eight-Pole Sword sect would probably send all their experts to fight for it after learning of its whereabouts. In the hands of others, the unforgivable godly sword would only cause trouble. It cannot be refined at all. However, in the hands of a true high-level sword cultivator, it was completely different. Not to mention refining it, even feeling and comprehending the sword intent in a day and night was a good thing. The Eight Poles sword formation's current power was already the peak that sword sect experts in the cultivation world could reach. Originally, this was enough for the Eight Poles sword sect to protect themselves and at least be in an invincible position in the cultivation world. However, now it seemed that this power alone was not enough to destroy the other party. Over the countless years, there had been many changes in the top sects of the immortal cultivation world and the devil cultivation world, but only the Eight-Pole Sword sect had always represented sword cultivators. Since the founding of the sect until now, it had never declined. This was because the Eight-Pole Sword formation could kill a Nine Tribulations expert and also severely injure an expert who was one realm higher than a Nine Tribulations expert. In fact, if it were not for the unforgivable godly sword, even if Shaolin Yu was not destroyed by the Eight-Pole Sword formation, he would have been severely injured. The light swords were still gathering in the sky and then falling, but Shaolin Yu's body was still standing straight. After thinking for a while, the sword sect leader made up his mind and shouted, "Everyone, use the limitless style to kill this boy." The limitless style was the most powerful move of the Eight-Pole Sword formation. Its power depended on the strength of the sword cultivator controlling the sword formation and the quality of the immortal sword maintaining the sword formation. Now, if the Eight-Pole Sword formation successfully activated the limitless style, the sword formation would be able to release an attack that was 10 times more powerful than the destructive light swords. Although the limitless style was powerful, it was not easy to activate. An attack that was 10 times more powerful than the destructive light swords required the support of 10 times more energy. It also required the expert controlling the sword formation to have a stronger control ability. At this moment, the situation could not be delayed. The experts of the sword sect and the sword sect leader did not have the time to think too much. Although they had never used the limitless style during practice before, they had to give it a try today. Under the lead of the sword sect leader, the experts of the sword sect began to change their seals. The 8 immortal swords that were originally standing in midair rose horizontally and then chased after each other as they spun rapidly. In an instant, the 8 rapidly moving immortal swords formed a circle. As they rose into the sky, they continued to shrink. In just 5 or 6 breaths of time, the circle of light actually condensed into a point. In the end, it flashed and disappeared without a trace. The 8 experts of the sword sect had solemn expressions, but the seals on their hands never stopped. The sword origin energy in their bodies surged out crazily like a flood, causing their auras to continuously rise. However, their bodies became more and more empty. Limitless style, heaven and earth change. Suddenly, the sword sect's master let out an explosive shout, and it was like a thunderclap had exploded in the sky. After that, the heavens and the earth actually dimmed as a brilliant ray of sword light shot over from the 9 heavens, yet it vanished without a trace with a flash. In the next moment, the bright sword light appeared once again, but it was already less than 300 meters away from Shaolin Yu. Sword chi rushed towards his face. The sword momentum sealed the sky, the sword intent chilling to the bones. Almost subconsciously, Shaolin Yu used the unforgivable divine sword to slash in front of him. Then, a bright light flashed in front of his eyes, and the sword light actually disappeared 300 meters away. However, he felt a strange, stabbing pain between his brows. Chapter 209. However, Shaolin Yu's soul was still in the chaotic, demon-nascent soul, and not in his sea of consciousness. After the infinite style attack from the 8 extremes, sword formation entered his sea of consciousness. It directly pounced on the grayish-black iron piece. What was surprising was that the iron piece only trembled slightly before this extremely fierce attack was eliminated. Other than causing Xiao Lingyu to be shocked and his body to tremble just now, it did not cause any other effect. After a short period of time, the metal piece in Xiao Lingyu's sea of consciousness actually reflected the limitless style back. The Eight-Sword Sect experts were caught off guard, and all of them spat out blood as they flew back, their bodies floating in the air like broken leaves. After Xiao Lingyu came back to his senses and checked, he could not help but be shocked because the 8 masters of the 8 Extreme Sword Sect had all died on the spot under the counterattack of the Iron Piece. There was no need for Xiao Lingyu to go to the 8 Extremes continent to take revenge. These 8 top masters of the 8 Extreme Sword Sect all died here, causing the overall strength of the 8 Extremes Sword Sect to plummet. After this news spread out, it would not be long before the 8 Extreme Sword Sect was removed from the cultivation world. After the 8 masters of the Sword Sect died, the immortal swords they brought all fell from the sky. Their color was extremely dim, and Xiao Lingyu unceremoniously put them all away. Although it was a lucky victory, Xiao Lingyu was still afraid. If it were not for the grayish-black iron piece's help at the critical moment, he would not have had a good time facing the 8 Extreme Sword Formation this time. On the other battlefield, Liu and Gungjia had been paying attention to the battle here. With the two of them working together, they were able to block the attacks of the 4 powerful characters, including the Serpent Devourer of Heaven. Originally, the two of them thought that the 8 Extreme Sword Formation would definitely be able to kill Xiao Lingyu, but the result disappointed them. As soon as the 8 Extreme Sword Formation was broken, Liu and Gungjia were already prepared to escape. The two of them knew that the current situation was extremely dangerous, so they made a prompt decision and threw out their proud magic treasures, preparing to make them explode to buy themselves time to escape. However, their wishful thinking failed. When they were about to detonate their magic treasures, the Serpent Devourer of Heaven activated its innate magical power and completely sealed off a large area of space around them. They could no longer move, and their magic treasures were naturally imprisoned on the spot. Xiao Lingyu flashed over and said to the serpent, "Well done. Stop the magical power first. They can't escape this time." The Serpent Devourer of Heaven immediately stopped the magical power, and Gungjia and Liu slowly regained their freedom. However, their eyes were filled with despair, because their speed was far inferior to Xiao Lingyu's. There was no possibility of escape at all. Xiao Lingyu did not hesitate. Just as the serpent stopped the magical power, he quickly made his move. He placed 2 palms on the shoulders of the two of them, and then used the power of chaos to imprison their cultivation. As for Li Yu's demonic dragon, it had long been torn into pieces by the Serpent Devourer of Heaven. Even Li Yu's demonic banner was almost torn into rags by the Serpent Devourer of Heaven's dragon claws. "You've been chasing me for so many years. Have you ever thought that this day would come?" Xiao Lingyu asked calmly. "Now that things have come to this, the winner takes all. We're meat on the chopping block, and you're the knife. It's too late to say anything. If you want to kill us, then kill us. Don't use those words to ridicule us," Liu said stubbornly. He knew that Xiao Lingyu would definitely not let the two of them go. "Little brother, you see, we don't actually have a deep grudge. Why don't you let me go? I'll definitely repay you in the future." Gungjia seemed to cherish his life. Even under such circumstances, he did not completely despair. "Repay you? I'm afraid that you won't be able to repay me. Who knows, in a few days, you might bring other experts to seek revenge." Xiao Lingyu sneered. He despised people like Gungjia from the bottom of his heart, and felt that Liu had more backbone. "Brother Gungjia, are you still hoping that he'll let us go?" Liu snorted and asked. "Liu, during the battle near Earth, do you know who moved some of the people on Earth?" Xiao Lingyu asked calmly. "Why should I tell you? Even if I tell you, you won't let me go." Liu snorted and said, "Indeed, even if you tell me, I won't let you go. However, if you don't tell me, I won't let you die so easily," Xiao Lingyu said threateningly. Hearing this, Liu's expression changed. As a demonic cultivator, he knew many ways to make people beg for death. Ordinary cultivators more or less knew a little, such as using true fire to burn the other party's soul. I don't know who moved them, but I don't think it was a cultivator who did it. It should be some kind of hidden, ancient formation that exists on Earth. If there was a powerhouse on Earth who could move between galaxies, I'm afraid I wouldn't be standing in front of you now. Liu pondered for a while and explained. Then did you see clearly at that time that only the young people were moved? Xiaoling Yu asked again. I was fighting with my life at that time. How could I have the time to see that? Liu said indifferently. Then you can go now. As Xiaoling Yu said this, the primal chaos true fire gushed out from his palm. In an instant, the two top powerhouses of the cultivation world were turned into ashes. Not even their nascent souls and primordial spirits were spared. Being merciful to one's enemy was being cruel to oneself. Back on Earth, Xiaoling Yu understood this point. Li Yu was killed, and Xiaoling Yu could be considered to have avenged the innocent people who died on Earth. He also avenged his parents, which made him feel a little more relaxed. Although Li Yu couldn't prove that only the young people were moved, it was almost the truth. In the end, after killing Li Yu and Gengjia, Xiaoling Yu first teleported away from this uninhabited planet, then found a place to rest for a while before sending a message to Anya. Originally, Xiaoling Yu didn't want to go to the chaotic astral sea again. He only wanted to meet Anya again before he ascended, but Anya said that she couldn't leave now and asked Xiaoling Yu to go over. Although he was a little worried that the young God Realm powerhouse would come looking for trouble with him, Xiaoling Yu still teleported to the chaotic astral sea. After all, if that young God Realm powerhouse really came back, he wouldn't be able to hide for a few decades no matter where he went. Xiaoling Yu could imagine that the metal piece in his mind was definitely not simple if it was a treasure that even a top powerhouse in the God Realm coveted. In addition, the metal piece had saved him before, so he naturally didn't want to give it to that young God Realm cultivator. Moreover, even if he wanted to give the metal piece away, he had to find a way to control it first. For some reason, the metal piece stayed in Xiaoling Yu's mind, and he couldn't move it at all. If that young God Realm cultivator wanted to take the metal piece away, he would have to kill Xiaoling Yu first. When he thought about this, Xiaoling Yu was very grateful to the little girl who claimed to be Jiang Lanyue's sister. However, he was even more confused. He didn't understand why this little girl would take such good care of him. Was it because he knew her sister? He couldn't figure it out, but he didn't think too much about it. After teleporting continuously for more than a month, he finally arrived at the chaotic astral sea again. There was no teleportation formation that led directly to the chaotic astral sea, so he had to travel across the galaxy again. Xiaoling Yu was very nervous throughout the entire teleportation. He was afraid that the God Realm powerhouse would come after him. However, the danger he imagined did not appear. Even the starry sky of the chaotic astral sea was very peaceful. The Langhuang continent was no different from before. The Cloud Mist Tower in South Chiu City was also covered by clouds, as usual. It was still the same room. Anya still arrived before Xiaoling Yu. However, the difference was that this room was not covered by clouds and mist, and there were no fragrant dishes on the table. Seeing Xiaoling Yu appear with Ling Anya, who was accompanied by Elder Sun, immediately stood up and said, I can't stay outside for too long. Come with me to the headquarters. It's good to chat here. Why do you have to go to the headquarters? I won't take up too much of your time. Xiaoling Yu sat on the chair and refused to get up as he said tiredly, Why? You've single-handedly destroyed the top 3 cultivation families. Is there any place in the cultivation world that you don't dare to go? Anya asked Xiaoling Yu with a smile. I'm not afraid. I just don't want to waste time. Besides, no matter how powerful the headquarters is, you have no reason to harm me. Why should I be afraid? Xiaoling Yu said uninterestedly. Since you're not afraid, come with me. It's not like you'll lose 2 pounds of meat. Anya said as she walked out of the room. Xiaoling Yu had no choice but to follow. The Shuntian League had always been mysterious. Xiaoling Yu really did not want to have anything to do with such an organization. He felt that mysterious things often had a lot of power. After experiencing the power of the 8 extremes sword formation, Xiaoling Yu knew that he was not invincible in the cultivation world. He did not want any accidents to happen when he was about to ascend to the immortal realm. If that happened, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Most importantly, Xiaolingyu had a good impression of the Shuntian League after talking with Yin Tianzi last time. The location of the Shuntian League's headquarters had always been very confidential. Even Nine Tribulation experts like Geng Jia and Liu might not know. Even the internal members of the Shuntian League were only aware of it. The headquarters of such a mysterious and powerful organization was now open to Xiaolingyu. However, he did not feel proud or happy as he walked. He only felt a little worried. The Shuntian League's headquarters was on the Langhuang continent. Xiaolingyu thought that it would be very hidden and difficult to find. He did not expect that the headquarters of the Shuntian League was actually an independent space that was not very big. The entrance of this independent space was not very remote. It was on the top of a barren mountain. When they reached the top of the mountain, Anya quickly made a set of hand seals and sent them into the void. After a wave of fluctuation, a space crack appeared. Chapter 2:10. It was no wonder that the headquarters of the Shuntian League had always been hard to find since they had their own independent space. We've always called this place the Shuntian Realm. Only the true core members of the Shuntian League can enter and leave freely. There are many restrictions and formations here, so you have to be careful and don't touch them. After passing through the spatial crack, Anya told Xiaolingyu solemnly, "Although you're very strong, there are many formations here that even we don't understand. If you walk around carelessly, you'll be trapped for a period of time. Of course, the main reason why I'm reminding you is that I don't want you to disturb the peace here." "Is it very peaceful here?" Xiaolingyu asked in a rhetorical tone. When he fully spread out his will, he was able to cover a large area. He could also feel that there were indeed layers of restrictions here. If he didn't have the correct route to guide him, ordinary cultivators would have died before they could even see a shadow of a person. However, although there were flowers, grass, trees, and pavilions everywhere, and it looked like a peaceful paradise, there were many cultivators shuttling back and forth, and they seemed to be very busy. It's just a special situation recently. In the past, this place was very peaceful. Anya continued with a very light tone, as if she was still brooding over Xiaolingyu's words last time. You can have special situations too. You've been hiding your strength for countless years. Are you preparing to rise in a high-profile manner? Well, now that the three top sects have been destroyed, the cultivation world is in turmoil. It's indeed a good opportunity to take advantage of the situation. Xiaolingyu continued to look around as he said in a strange tone, "Oh, could it be that in your eyes, our Shuntian League is the kind of organization that likes to seize benefits?" Anya's expression didn't change. "Don't tell me that you're still the same organization that pays attention to following the will of the heavens." Xiaolingyu immediately replied. His words stunned Anya and Elder Sun at the same time. They even stopped moving forward and looked at Xiaolingyu with a little surprise. Very few people in the cultivation world knew what the Shuntian League used to be and what kind of organization it was. To this day, even 90% of the Shuntian League members knew nothing about the Shuntian League's mission. "Looks like you've done a lot of homework before coming here," Anya said as she regained her composure. "Actually, that's all I know," Xiaolingyu said calmly. Xiaolingyu felt that this conversation was too boring. It was not a date at all, but in reality, he and Anya had already done it as husband and wife, but neither of them seemed to know how to be romantic. This made Xiaolingyu feel very uncomfortable, but she couldn't say it out loud. She could only use her emotionless face to express her silent resistance. "You even know about this? I can't believe you don't know much," Anya said with a smile. "You should trust me," Xiaolingyu said with a deep meaning. Anya raised her eyebrows slightly when she heard this. She didn't say anything else, as if she was thinking about the meaning of Xiaolingyu's words. After walking for about an hour, Anya stopped at the entrance of a small courtyard. In this short period of time, Xiaolingyu had already seen no less than 1,000 cultivators. Moreover, these cultivators were not only from the human race, but also some experts from other races and the demon race. These cultivators all seemed to be in a hurry, but there was some excitement and nervousness on their faces, as if they were about to face a great challenge with great opportunities. From this, Xiaoling Yu could tell that the Shuntian League was about to make a big move. He had overthrown the 3 top sects in the cultivation world, causing undercurrents to surge in the cultivation world. This seemed to have given the Shuntian League a very good opportunity. Just as Xiaoling Yu was pondering, Anya knocked on the door of the small courtyard. An old man in a white robe with snow-white eyebrows that drooped down to his chest appeared. "Greetings, Mississippi." The old man first glanced at her, then cupped his fists and bowed respectfully. What Xiaoling Yu found strange was that this old man didn't greet Elder Sun, a ninth tribulation expert. Xiaoling Yu scanned the old man with his mind before realizing that this old man was also a ninth tribulation expert. Furthermore, he was slightly stronger than Elder Sun. Xiaoling Yu had already seen that the Shuntian League had 2 ninth tribulation experts. This alone was enough to show disdain for all the big and small forces in the cultivation world. One had to know that even the top 3 sects only had 1 ninth tribulation expert. "Elder Wang, is everything all right in the quiet room?" Anya didn't stand on ceremony and didn't forget to ask as she stepped into the courtyard. Xiaoling Yu followed her into the courtyard, but Elder Sun stood outside the door as if he didn't dare or had the right to enter. "Everything is fine. It won't be long before the league leader wakes up," Elder Wang replied calmly and amiably. The courtyard was not large. There was a small path paved with blue stones that led to the only 2-story stone building in the courtyard. Both sides of the path were planted with various spiritual flowers and herbs. This made the courtyard seem peaceful and comfortable. As long as one stepped into this courtyard, they would feel a sense of comfort in their body and mind. All their worries would seem to disappear before their eyes. The stone door of the stone building was tightly shut. After Elder Wang pushed the stone door open, he turned around and found a stone in the courtyard to squat down. He didn't ask about Xiaoling Yu at all. "What's your relationship with the league leader who is in seclusion?" The layout of the first floor of the stone building was very simple. There was only a long stone table and a circle of stone piers. Other than that, there was nothing else. Xiaoling Yu glanced at it and asked, "Didn't you find out?" Anya smiled faintly and asked as she walked towards the stone stairs at the back of the building. "Your Shuntian League is so tightly organized. Do you think it's possible for me to find out?" Xiaoling Yu didn't answer her question. "The league leader is my father. He went into seclusion before I was born and is only about to come out now," Anya said unhurriedly as she walked up the stairs. "Your father?" Although Xiaoling Yu guessed it, he still found it hard to believe. He already knew that Anya had an extraordinary status in the Shuntian League, but he didn't expect her to be the daughter of the Shuntian League's league leader. Many powerful cultivators in the cultivation world knew that the league leaders of the Shuntian League were all unfathomably powerful. Even Yin Tianzi didn't doubt this and seemed a little afraid. Xiaoling Yu didn't expect Anya to have such a powerful background. No wonder Elder Sun kept following her, and Elder Wang was so polite. "What's wrong? Are you scared?" Anya stopped and turned around to ask as she stood at the door of the second floor. Xiaoling Yu didn't like people talking to him from above, so he walked to the door of the second floor before replying, "I'm not scared. I'm just a little nervous. After all, this is my first time meeting my father-in-law. You call him nice now, but my father may not agree to be your father-in-law," Anya said as she turned around. However, Xiaoling Yu caught the look of joy on her face. It turns out that she also likes to listen to nice things. Xiaoling Yu thought so in his heart and followed after her with a wry smile. There was no living room on the second floor, only a hallway and 2 secret rooms. One of the doors of the 2 secret rooms was protected by a very powerful restriction, while the other one didn't have the slightest bit of energy fluctuation. "My father is in seclusion in this secret room." Anya pointed at the secret room protected by restrictions and introduced it. Then she pushed open the stone door of the secret room without any defenses and said, "This is where I usually cultivate. Do you think we should go see my father first or visit my room first?" Let's see Uncle first. However, Uncle is still in seclusion. It's a little inappropriate for us to rashly disturb him, right? Xiaoling Yu said without hesitation. You're quite polite. However, you just called him father-in-law, and now you're calling him uncle. You're changing too quickly. Anya rolled her eyes at Xiaoling Yu and began to form seals. As her seals continuously entered the restriction on the stone door, the restriction on the stone door slowly dissipated. Even though she knew the seals, she still took a full 10 minutes to open the door of the secret room. What Xiaoling Yu didn't expect was that there was a huge cocoon of light suspended in midair in the secret room. In the cocoon of light, there was a middle-aged man who was sitting cross-legged with his upper body naked. The man was spirited and handsome. His long black hair draped over his shoulders, and his skin exuded a bronze luster. He had a broad forehead, a pair of long and thick eyebrows, and a straight nose. Even though he was in seclusion, he still gave off an extremely dignified feeling. No wonder this girl didn't look shy at all when she brought me in. It turns out that her father is still in seclusion. However, this situation is a little strange, Xiaoling Yu thought to himself. Just as this thought flashed through Xiaoling Yu's mind, his sharp eyes noticed that Anya's father's finger in the cocoon of light trembled slightly. Anya also noticed this, and a look of joy appeared on her face. Could this be a sign that his seclusion is about to end? Xiaoling Yu was a little suspicious. My father should be able to complete his seclusion in less than 3 months. Anya said a little excitedly. Uncle's cultivation method seems a little strange. It doesn't seem like an ordinary cultivation method. Xiaoling Yu said after sensing the aura of the cocoon of light. My father is a genius. Why would he cultivate such a vulgar cultivation method? Anya said proudly. By right, he should have already ascended to the immortal realm. Xiaoling Yu was a little confused. Chapter 211. After waiting for 2 months, Anya's father, who is also the leader of the Shuntian League, finally ended his long seclusion. The moment he woke up, a ray of light shot up into the sky, and a mighty aura swept through the entire secret realm. All the cultivators of the Sky Alliance in the secret realm raised their heads to look at the pillar of light, and their hearts were filled with shock and suspicion. Even among the Shuntian League cultivators in the secret realm, only a few of the truly powerful and core members knew about the existence of the leader of the Shuntian League. However, only 2 or 3 of them had actually seen the leader, and Anya was one of them. The pillar of light lasted for an entire hour before it ended. The aura that was like a torrential wind and torrential current also disappeared along with it. Father has woken up. Let's go and greet him. At this moment, Anya and Xiaoling Yu were in her simple room, which did not look like a girl's room at all. She felt that everything had calmed down, and she pulled Xiaoling Yu to the opposite door. In the past 2 months, Anya often brought Xiaoling Yu around the secret realm and introduced him to the Shuntian League cultivators. However, most of the time, the 2 of them would return to this stone building. After spending so much time together, and with the fact that they were already husband and wife, they naturally became more and more harmonious, and even the small misunderstandings in the past were completely forgotten. Xiaoling Yu had also been in a relationship before, and his EQ did not decrease much due to the long period of cultivation. He knew very well how to get along with his girlfriend, and he also knew that they should be more tolerant of each other. Anya used to be cold and unapproachable, but ever since Xiaoling Yu conquered her body, she gradually became less autistic. At least in front of Xiaoling Yu, she was still considered gentle and pleasant. Xiaoling Yu had been working hard for many years, and had experienced countless twists and turns, and had long forgotten the peaceful days without cultivation. These 2 months made him feel very stable and peaceful, and he felt that God was really kind to him to have such a period of time before he ascended. When he arrived at the secret room on the other side, the cocoon of light had already disappeared, and a middle-aged cultivator wearing a blue robe had his back to the door. He was staring at a portrait on the wall that had appeared out of nowhere. As the middle-aged cultivator's body covered most of the portrait, Xiao Yu could not clearly see the appearance of the person in the portrait and could only see the forehead and hair tied up in a bun. However, from the forehead and hair, he could tell that the person in the portrait was a woman. Father, father. Perhaps it was because Anya had never called anyone father since she was born. At this moment, she seemed a little emotional and her voice was a little choked up. The middle-aged cultivator seemed to have suddenly come back to his senses, and he faintly sighed. He turned around and said with a smile, I've let you and your mother down all these years, and I've let you suffer. His originally imposing appearance had now become amiable. When the middle-aged cultivator said this, he gave Xiao Yu the feeling of an uncle next door, and he could not help but think of his father. Xiao Yu's father was usually very strict, but sometimes he was very doting on him. Father, I didn't suffer, but I've always missed my mother. Father, can you tell me when my mother will come back? Although the corners of Anya's eyes were overflowing with sparkling tears, her expression was very strong. Your mother, she won't be coming back because she's already gone. The middle-aged cultivator's face was filled with sorrow. No, father, you're lying to me. Elder Wang and Elder Sun both said that my mother went out to do something and will be back soon. Hearing her father's words, Anya couldn't help but tremble and take a step back. She said in disbelief, and the tears in her eyes flowed like a spring. They were afraid that you would be sad, so they lied to you. The reason why I had to go into seclusion for so many years was because I had to cultivate a cultivation method, and also because I was seriously injured. It was because I was seriously injured and on the verge of death that in order to save me, your mother didn't hesitate to use all of her strength to heal me and help me enter a state of cultivation. When the middle-aged cultivator said this, 2 streams of hot tears flowed down. After a slight pause, he continued, At that time, your mother was already pregnant with you. In order to save me, she used up too much of her strength, but her original cultivation wasn't very strong. After my injuries were stabilized, she was also like a lamp that had run out of oil. What was helpless was that at that time, only my consciousness existed, and my body couldn't move at all, so I couldn't stop her. Originally, she didn't have to die, but at that time, she was pregnant with you. If she wanted to save her life, she had to give you up, because when she was pregnant with you, she had to pour the strength and life essence that she had painstakingly cultivated for many years into your body day and night. Unfortunately, she was soft-hearted and couldn't bear to part with you at all. At the last moment, she poured all of her remaining energy into your body, allowing you to be born early. After you were born, she passed away. No, you're lying to me. Anya really couldn't believe this result. She immediately covered her face and ran back to her secret room to cry bitterly. Although Anya had never seen her mother since she was born, and under normal circumstances, she shouldn't have too many feelings for her. However, for many years, Elder Sun and Elder Wang said that Anya's mother went out to do something in order to be able to cultivate in peace. Anya had always been looking forward to her mother's return. This expectation gradually became a habit, and Anya had always kept it in her heart. As time passed, this kind of invisibly deepened and became more and more intense, becoming difficult to untie and let go of. After so many years of waiting, this was the result. One could imagine how disappointed and sad Anya was at this time. Xiao Yu was embarrassed. He could understand Anya's feelings, but he couldn't just run over to comfort her. After all, his father-in-law was still curiously staring at him. Anya left in a hurry just now, so I haven't introduced myself. I'm Shui, Anya's father. The middle-aged cultivator cupped his fists and said very politely. Although Xiao Yu didn't introduce himself, an insightful cultivator like Shui could still guess a little. Xiao Yu greets uncle. Xiao Yu bowed and saluted. You're very interesting. You've obviously cultivated the primal chaos force that everyone can only dream of, but you've been demonized. As a result, your future is uncertain. When Shui heard how Xiao Yu addressed him, he was even more certain of his guess. Therefore, he didn't hide anything and directly spoke. This is something that can't be helped. Previously, I was implanted with a demon fetus by the black blood demon. After a few mishaps, I became like this. Uncle, do you have a way to solve this? Xiaoling Yu replied gloomily. If you're cultivating other techniques or energy, I can think of a way. However, your primal chaos force is too advanced, and your demonization is too deep. I'm afraid that even the experts of the God realm can't do anything about it. And Chui shook his head and said, Then I can only take one step at a time. My luck is pretty good. Xiaoling Yu smiled bitterly and said helplessly, Hee, misfortune is a blessing in disguise. Your primal chaos force being demonized may not be a bad thing. At least for now, it seems that your demonized primal chaos force is very powerful. I'm afraid that you won't be able to find a match in the cultivation world. And Chui smiled and comforted him. The cultivation world is just the beginning of cultivation. Xiaoling Yu didn't dare to be arrogant. As they spoke, Xiaoling Yu had been sensing the aura fluctuations on Chui's body. He found that Chui's aura leaked out when he was in seclusion. However, it was completely hidden now, so he couldn't detect it at all. It could be seen that Chui's strength was at least a realm higher than his. A ninth tribulation expert was already at the peak of the cultivation world. Xiaoling Yu should be a level higher than a ninth tribulation expert, but he was about to ascend. This Chui was at least a level higher than him. What level was Chui at? When it comes to cultivation, we'll find out in the future. Let's not talk about this for now. What do you think of my daughter? And Chui asked with a very curious expression. Anya is diligent and conscientious in her cultivation. She's serious and meticulous in her work. She's naturally not an ordinary woman to be able to achieve sword heart illumination in sword cultivation. Xiaoling Yu was not stingy with his praise because he was speaking the truth. In this aspect, Yi is very similar to her mother. It's just that her mother had a hard life and met me. Otherwise, she wouldn't have. Uncle, you don't have to blame yourself too much. Annie shouldn't regret her choice at all. Xiaoling Yu continued, not wanting Chui to be too sad and guilty. The most taboo thing for cultivators was to be too attached to love. Because of this, it would form an inner demon over time. When we first got together, we wanted to be a loving couple. Unfortunately, I was a person who would get into trouble wherever I went. She had to suffer with me, and in the end, she even lost her life. Now I repent, but it's too late. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have fought for anything back then. I would have found a place to live in seclusion and never cared about the affairs of the world again. I wouldn't think about those messy things. And Chui sighed. Life is hard to predict. Who can continue to walk according to their own ideas? Sometimes, since you started, you have to keep going. Xiaoling Yu said with deep feelings. I just hope that you can cherish a little more in the future. Don't let her suffer too much like her mother. And Chui said bluntly. Xiaoling Yu knew that his father-in-law was warning him. Usually, a prospective son-in-law would inevitably hear such words when he visited. Therefore, he nodded and said, Uncle, don't worry. As long as I'm still breathing, I won't let Anya suffer. Chapter 2:12. Xiaoling Yu chatted with his father-in-law in Qian for nearly 4 hours. When he returned to the secret room on the opposite side, and he was staring blankly at the window with the restriction on it opened. There were no tall buildings in the secret realm. Standing by the window of the secret room, one could see very far. The scenery outside was very beautiful, but Anya was not in the mood to appreciate it. Her eyes were dull, and she seemed to be thinking about something. Xiaoling Yu walked slowly to the window, stretched out his arms, and pulled Anya into his arms. He said softly, Don't be sad. You have to live well. Only then can you be worthy of Annie's sacrifice. When a person was sad, especially a woman, was comforted, she could not help but cry again. Anya was the same. She turned around and hugged Xiaoling Yu tightly. She leaned on Xiaoling Yu's shoulder and began to sob. Xiaoling Yu did not say anything. He held Anya's waist with one hand and gently stroked her back with the other. After a long time, Anya finally stopped crying. However, she still hugged Xiao Lingyu tightly, as if she was afraid that she would lose one of her hands. After losing something, people tended to cherish what they had now more. In the past 2 months, although Xiao Lingyu and Anya spent every day together, they did not have intimate contact. They treated each other with respect and only talked and laughed as they walked around. However, they had been hugging for a long time. Xiao Lingyu's hand also touched Anya's back for a long time. Occasionally, his hand would fall on Anya's perky buttocks and feel the fullness of her breasts. Gradually, his heart began to stir. Xiao Lingyu was not lustful, but a normal man's reaction. Although Xiao Lingyu was a cultivator who had reached the top of the cultivation world, he was not a man with few desires. He liked to be single, but it did not mean that he liked to be alone and not have a woman he liked to be intimate with. If it wasn't for Anya's special situation, Xiao Lingyu wouldn't have been able to hug her for so long. She was afraid that they would have already touched each other. After Anya calmed down, Xiao Lingyu lifted her hand and brushed away Anya's hair. Then, she kissed Anya on the corner of her lips. After being kissed by Xiao Lingyu, Anya's body immediately trembled and her eyes lit up. However, after glancing at Xiao Lingyu, she immediately looked away as if she was guilty. He could tell from Anya's blushing face that she was a little shy and her body was gradually heating up. Seeing that Anya's reaction was not bad, Xiao Lingyu took advantage of the situation and moved his mouth to Anya's red lips. At the same time, his hand went to Anya's perky butt and gently pinched it. Anya's teeth only lasted for less than 5 breaths before Xiao Lingyu pried them open and their tongues tangled together. Right at this moment, the door to Anya's room that had no restrictions placed on it was pushed open. The two of them immediately separated when they heard the noise and looked towards the door at the same time. However, they were completely unaware that there was still crystalline saliva at the corners of their mouths. I think I came at the wrong time. Xiao Lingyu and Anya were very embarrassed and wanted to find a hole to hide in. And Shui, who was standing at the door, was even more embarrassed. After all, his daughter was one of them. "Father, come in." After Anya wiped her mouth, she went to the door and grabbed in Shui's arm. No, I just came to see if you're still crying. I've been in seclusion for too long and my bones are a little sore. I'll go out and see if there are any changes in the mystic realm. And Shui pulled his daughter's arm away and turned to leave. He walked very quickly and went downstairs in the blink of an eye. "It's all your fault. Father must have something to tell us." Anya glared at Xiao Lingyu and said angrily, "How would I know that he would come in at this time?" Xiao Lingyu muttered indignantly, I'll go look for him." Anya rolled her eyes at Xiao Lingyu and was about to go out and chase after her father. However, before she could leave, Xiao Lingyu pulled her back. "He didn't say anything just now, so it's definitely not urgent. He just came out of seclusion. Let him go out alone." After Xiao Lingyu explained, he said with a smile of exultation, "We've already started just now. Do you think we should continue with the rest?" "Continue my foot." Anya scolded softly and tried to shake off Xiao Lingyu's hand. However, not only did she not manage to do so, Xiao Lingyu hugged her tightly. "Uncle left so quickly because he didn't want to ruin our good time. You can ignore my feelings, but you can't let Uncle down." Xiao Lingyu kissed Anya's cheek and said in a seemingly reasonable manner. However, there was a naughty smile on her face. "Smooth talker." Anya scolded again, but did not try to break free. In less than 100 breaths of time, Xiao Lingyu, who had been holding back for many years, stripped himself and Anya naked. Then, his bronze body and Anya's fair body were entwined together. This time was different from the last time. Anya was forced to do it last time, but this time, both of them were fully immersed in it. Last time, it was to cultivate and save themselves, but this time, it was to satisfy their desires. Last time, Anya did not feel anything at all. However, this time, her reaction was getting more and more intense. She would occasionally take the initiative to cooperate, and even moan a few times. After a while, they stopped. The redness on Anya's body gradually faded. However, she was still lying on Xiao Lingyu's body lazily and drawing circles on Xiao Lingyu's chest with her finger. At this moment, Xiao Lingyu closed his eyes and enjoyed Anya's gentleness. He really wanted to hug Anya and have a good night's sleep so that he could relax his body and mind. The more he thought about it, the more sleepy Xiao Lingyu felt. Unexpectedly, he really fell asleep just like that. Anya wanted to wake Xiao Lingyu up. However, she remembered that Xiao Lingyu had done so many things over the years and must be very busy and lonely. Thus, she did not have the heart to wake him up. After Xiao Lingyu fell asleep, she quietly got up, tidied up her clothes and appearance, and left the room. After searching in the secret realm for a while, Anya finally found her father and Shui. "You look more like your mother now," and Shui could not help but say when he saw Anya, who had just had sex. Anya was not stupid. Her cheeks, which had just recovered, instantly flushed red. "What are you going to do when you see that the people in the secret realm are so busy?" And Shui asked seriously. "We're going to do something that our Shuntian League's ancestors could not do," Anya said firmly. "Haha, you're talking about that? I've been in seclusion all this time. I didn't expect you to not give up," and Shui said with a smile. "The ancestors of the Shuntian League have been working on this for a long time. They have accumulated a lot of energy. Now that we have a great opportunity, how can we not give it a try?" Anya said firmly. "Forget it. If we do something big, we'll have to sacrifice a lot," and Shui said as he shook his head. "Father, didn't you say that if we want to achieve something big, we have to sacrifice some people? But now, that was then and this is now. Back then, I was arrogant and thought that I could do it. Unfortunately, in the end, it was all for naught. Moreover, I even caused your mother's death. Now that I think about it, I feel that I was really stupid. The world of cultivation is so big. How can we control it completely? Even if all the cultivators bow down to us and are willing to accept the cultivation philosophy of following heaven's will, who can guarantee that they will think that way in their hearts? Who can guarantee that they will cultivate in secret? We can't keep an eye on them all the time, can we?" And Shui explained with a sigh. Then he said, "The cultivators of the Shuntian League are loyal, but what right do we have to make them risk their lives for us? Is it worth it if they lose their lives? To teach the cultivation philosophy of following heaven's will, we don't have to control the world of cultivation completely. We only need to spread it out like our predecessors. Whoever can accept it will be their fortune." And Shui's words made Anya fall into deep thought. After a while, and Shui said, "Maybe it's the law of nature that cultivators cultivate with all kinds of beliefs and methods. If we want them to follow heaven's will, isn't it also against the law of nature? It's probably because of this that so many generations of our predecessors failed to accomplish it. Then wouldn't the efforts of the cultivators of the Shuntian League in recent generations be in vain?" Anya didn't seem to have figured it out completely. We've been wrong in recent generations. We've hoarded spiritual stones and immortal stones and robbed many high-level magical treasures. We didn't use them to show kindness to the world, but to conquer the world with them. This is wrong in the first place. Therefore, we can't keep making mistakes. Since we've taken them from the world, let's use them for the world," and Shui said with a smile. "How do we use them for the world?" Anya asked again, and Shui frowned and thought for a while. Then he said, "Set up a school and accept students from all races. Teach them cultivation for free and cultivate cultivators with good foundations. Give them spiritual stones and immortal stones. Teach them cultivation methods of various levels. Give them spiritual treasures and immortal treasures." Anya's eyes lit up. She said, "That's a good idea. In this way, we can spread following heaven's will in the school. After they finish their studies, they can go out and spread their influence. After a long time, following heaven's will become more and more influential. Well, I'll leave it to you to find old Sun and old Wang. I'll go talk to my good son-in-law." With that, and Shui's body blurred. He actually teleported in this secret realm full of restrictions and formations. Anya was relieved to hear her father call Xiao Lingyu his son-in-law. She was really worried that her father wouldn't be satisfied with Xiao Lingyu. After Shui arrived at Anya's room, he saw Xiao Lingyu sleeping soundly without the slightest vigilance. He frowned and shook his head, but he didn't wake Xiao Lingyu up. Chapter 213. Xiaoling Yu slept for an entire month before he woke up. Anya wasn't in the secret chamber, but when Xiaoling Yu opened his eyes, he could smell a faint fragrance in the room. His heart was filled with warmth and familiarity, but this feeling was so unfamiliar that it had almost faded from his life. After Xiaoling Yu got up, he tidied up his clothes and walked out of the room. However, he saw that the door to the secret chamber was completely open, and Shui was staring blankly at the portrait on the wall. Xiaoling Yu knew that the woman in the portrait was Anya's mother. She looked very similar to Anya. Xiaoling Yu didn't want to disturb Shui, but just as he was about to sneak out, Shui suddenly turned around and said with a smile, "You slept really well. It's quiet here, so I slept a little deeper." Xiaoling Yu replied with an embarrassed smile, then entered the secret chamber. "You're about to ascend to the immortal realm, right?" Shui asked after inviting Xiaoling Yu to sit down. "Yes, it won't exceed 50 years, Xiaoling Yu answered honestly. "Before you ascend, I want to arrange your marriage with you, What do you think?" Shui seemed to be asking for his opinion. Xiaoling Yu was stunned for a moment, then replied, "I'll listen to Uncle's arrangements, but I'm a little hesitant. You and won't ascend at the same time. Even if you do, you won't be in the same place after you ascend to the immortal realm. This means that you won't be together for a long time. If something happens to either of you in the immortal realm, or if you're unable to reunite, what will you do?" Shui said worriedly. Xiaoling Yu didn't reply, nor did he know how to respond. If it weren't for Shui's reminder, he probably wouldn't have such concerns until after he ascended. "Uncle, do you have any good ideas?" Xiaoling Yu asked sincerely. "The immortal realm is too big. Every ascender can't be sure where they will appear in the immortal realm before they ascend. They can only be sure if they will go to the Devil Dao, the Immortal Dao, or the Yao Dao. If Anya ascends, she will definitely appear in the Immortal Dao's territory. The primal chaos force that you cultivate is very special. I don't know where you will appear, but your primal chaos force has been demonized. In this case, you will most likely appear in the demonic Dao's territory." Shui paused for a moment. Seeing Xiaoling Yu's frown, he continued, "The devil path up there is different from the devil path in the cultivation world. The devil path's territory is as vast and boundless as the immortal path's territory. What's more, there's a spatial barrier between the immortal world and the devil world that is extremely difficult to pass through. This will cause you and Anya to be separated forever. Perhaps you can only meet again when you reach the immortal world. Whether you can reach the immortal world, and when you can reach, it is even more unpredictable." Xiaoling Yu was originally very happy when he heard that he was going to get married, but after hearing Shui's words, his happiness disappeared and was replaced by deep worry. "Can you give up your life for Anya?" Shui suddenly asked while Xiaoling Yu was deep in thought. "Yes," Xiaoling Yu replied without hesitation. "Good. I believe that I, Shui, and my daughter, Anya, will not misjudge you." Shui praised first, then said, "As long as you are not afraid of death, you will be able to find Anya when you reach the immortal realm." "Oh, Uncle has a way." Xiaoling Yu's eyes lit up. The immortal realm is divided into the immortal realm, devil realm, and Yao realm. Although the three realms are separated by spatial barriers, and it is very difficult for ordinary cultivators to travel between the two realms, every once in a while, the spatial barriers will form many independent spaces. These independent spaces can connect the two realms. If you are in the devil realm, you only need to enter the independent spaces that connect to the immortal realm to go to the immortal realm. However, the independent spaces are very special. Only cultivators below the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm can enter. True experts cannot enter, and the various realms will send a large number of experts below the 9 heavens Xian immortal realm to fight. If you want to pass through, it is almost impossible to survive." Shui calmly explained, "If I am not in the immortal realm, I will definitely go to the immortal realm to find Anya, even if it is almost impossible to survive." Xiaoling Yu understood Shui's meaning and replied without hesitation, "Of course, if it is impossible, you must not take the risk because of a moment of impulse. Before entering the independent space, you must have at least 50% confidence. Otherwise, it is not worth it to lose your life in vain. And Shui added, Uncle, don't worry. I am not a reckless person. I will definitely not do something that is obviously disadvantageous or impossible. Xiaoling Yu nodded and replied, After you two get married, you won't be alone anymore. You have to think about Anya and be careful. If something bad happens to you, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it, and Shui said meaningfully. Xiaoling Yu knew that Shui must have inquired about him these days. He probably already knew that he was a troublesome person, so he reminded him, I will remember your teachings. Xiaoling Yu nodded and replied sincerely, I have already chosen the date of your wedding. It will be after the Shuntian Academy opens. It will be about 10 years later. If you have any relatives or friends that you want to invite, it is best to send them a message now. And Shui changed the topic and said kindly, Then I will take my leave first. Xiaoling Yu left the small courtyard and sighed in his heart. It seems that after going up, my good days will not be many. But this is also good. Instead of letting trouble come to me every day, it is better to take the initiative to find trouble with others. The following days were very peaceful. Maybe it was because they were hiding in the secret territory, or maybe it was because of other reasons. In short, that young cultivator from the God realm did not come to find them. However, Xiaoling Yu rarely saw Anya. Anya had been busy with the affairs of the Shuntian Academy. Xiaoling Yu originally wanted to help, but he was not interested in those trivial matters. Anya also did not want to trouble him, so he was happy to be idle. However, Anya also told Xiaoling Yu that when Xiaoling Yu wanted to seek refuge in the secret territory, the Shuntian League's condition was for Xiaoling Yu to help the Shuntian League unify the cultivation world. This made Xiaoling Yu speechless. After seeing the astonishing wealth that the Shuntian League had accumulated over the years, Xiaoling Yu felt that if the Shuntian League did something big when the three top sects were about to be destroyed, the possibility of success was not small. 10 years passed quickly, and the Shuntian Academy finally welcomed the day of its opening. The Shuntian League took over the entire South Hill city and then rebuilt this medium-sized city into a large-scale academy to recruit students. The reason why it took so many years was not because it was difficult to build an academy, but because it took too long to advertise the Shuntian Academy. After all, the advertisement had to be spread throughout the entire cultivation world. Fortunately, the Shuntian League's ancestors had been painstakingly operating in recent generations and scattered all kinds of spies and intelligence personnel in every corner of the cultivation world. Otherwise, the Shuntian League would only be able to advertise in the astral sea of chaos. Anya was at least 1,000 years away from ascension. After all, she had not even passed the heavenly tribulation. Therefore, Shui made her the first principal of the Shuntian Academy to train her ability and let her train some of her own people. When the Shuntian Academy opened, students and guests from all over the cultivation world came to congratulate them. Outside the academy, there were cultivators from all kinds of clans, and it was a magnificent sight. So the top experts in the cultivation world also came to congratulate them. This was because they found out through various channels that the murderous star who overturned the three top sects had an unusual relationship with the principal of the Shuntian Academy. Even if Xiaoling Yu was not mentioned, there was no one in the cultivation world who dared to not give face to the Shuntian League. Shuntian Academy had a deep background and accumulated resources, so naturally, countless cultivators wanted to join it. However, the Shuntian Academy only accepted 3,000 students every year, and these students were required to be less than 500 years old. However, there were no restrictions on the origin of the students, and even disciples from big and small sects could join. The Shuntian League, which was sought after by cultivators, would not randomly recruit people. If one wanted to enter the Shuntian Academy to study, not only must they be less than 500 years old, they must also have a very good foundation and perception, and they must go through layers of tests. As a result, almost all the students who entered the Shuntian Academy were geniuses, and the Shuntian Academy did not lack various kinds of cultivation resources, so naturally, they could be trained. After graduation, most of them would have deep feelings for the Shantian Academy and would want to repay the academy by spreading the teachings of the Shantian Academy. Xiao Lingyu felt that his future father-in-law, and Shui, had taken this step very wisely, and it was more useful than conquering the world. Therefore, he generously took out many of his many years of savings and gave them to the Shantian Academy, including a large number of immortal stones and 8 immortal swords left behind by the experts of the Baji sword sect. The opening ceremony was very grand. Ninth Tribulation experts like Elder Sun and Elder Wang were present, and Xiao Lingyu was a murderous star who deterred the entire cultivation world. Even if Shui did not appear, no one would dare to cause trouble here. After the ceremony ended, it was time to test the students who came to sign up. After being busy for 2 full years, Anya gradually became free, and her marriage with Xiao Lingyu was also put on the agenda. On the 3rd year of the Shantian Academy's opening, Xiao Lingyu and Anya held their wedding as scheduled. Yin Dong, Shui Qingru, his sworn brother Gu Yunfei, and sister-in-law Hualan who were invited by Xiao Lingyu, were all present. What Xiao Lingyu did not expect was that even the experts of the Wind Howling race and Kunlun Rare Treasure shops, Boho also came. What Xiao Lingyu did not expect was that even the elusive expert Yin Tianzi came. On the day before the wedding, Xiao Lingyu gave the merciless sword to Anya as a betrothal gift, which made Anya and Shui very surprised and happy. The merciless sword was not very useful in Xiao Lingyu's hands, and Anya, as a sword cultivator who had reached the heart integrated into the sword for many years, was more suitable to have the merciless sword. Most importantly, Anya was going to be his wife. Giving out the unforgiven divine sword could be considered as Xiao Lingyu fulfilling his promise. He said that he would prepare a huge gift, and to an existence like the Sky Alliance, only a divine weapon like the unforgiven divine sword would be able to cause them to not underestimate it. Chapter 214. Under the rain of flowers created by the flower people, Xiao Lingyu brought Anya, who was wearing a red veil, along with a red silk scarf. They walked on the bright red carpet and slowly walked towards the stage. There were 2 seats on the stage, and Shui and Gu Yunfei were sitting on them. There is a saying in the world that when one's parents were not around, the elder brother would be the father and the elder sister-in-law would be the mother. Xiao Lingyu's parents were not around. As a sworn elder brother, Gu Yunfei was supposed to accept the vow of the 2 newlyweds. Bow to heaven and earth, bow to one's parents, and bow to each other. Xiao Lingyu was very familiar with this wedding process. He was the one who suggested it. The wedding did not last long. Under the gazes of countless guests, the 2 newlyweds entered the bridal chamber. The bridal chamber was the secret room in the stone building where Anya used to live and cultivate. After lifting Anya's red veil, the 2 drank a cup of wine and hugged each other tightly. At this moment, Xiao Lingyu missed his parents even more. He remembered that when he was still on Earth, his parents always nagged him to bring his girlfriend home. Unfortunately, they did not do so. Now that he had a family, his parents were no longer in this world. Anya, on the other hand, was full of happiness but also a little melancholy. After all, her husband was about to leave her. 30 years was not a long time, but it was not short either. Anyway, for a cultivator like Xiao Lingyu, it was almost like a flash. 30 years after the wedding, Xiao Lingyu ushered in the light of ascension. The upper realm had opened its door for him. Under the gaze of many relatives and friends who were watching the ceremony, Xiao Lingyu was wrapped in a colorful light. His body slowly ascended into the space passage that looked like a black hole in the sky. The words that needed to be said had been said thousands of times, and the things that needed to be done had been done. In this cultivation realm, Xiao Lingyu had no regrets, only reluctance. After decades of getting along, Xiao Lingyu and Anya treated each other respectfully and helped each other in times of need. Their relationship was very deep, but they had to separate. How could they not be sad? Anya originally said that she wouldn't come to watch the ceremony, because she was afraid that she would lose her composure. However, she couldn't calm herself down no matter how hard she tried. She couldn't help but come to watch the ceremony. She couldn't help but cry silently. Anya and Guyunfei were not the only ones who were reluctant to part with her. Serpent Devourer of Heaven and Linger, as well as the ignorant icy soul Heavenly Silkworm, had followed Xiaolingyu for a long time. They had fought together with Xiaolingyu and gained great benefits from Xiaolingyu. Now that they had to part with Xiaolingyu, they really could not accept it. Xiaolingyu had already told Serpent Devourer of Heaven, Icy Soul Heavenly Silkworm, and Linger to follow Anya after he ascended, until they ascended themselves. Serpent was actually not far away from ascending. It would only happen in the next few decades. However, Icy Soul Heavenly Silkworm and Linger might be too special. Now that they didn't even face their heavenly tribulations, Xiaolingyu would be more at ease if they stayed in the cultivation realm. Being able to ascend to the immortal realm meant that Xiaolingyu could also put down one of his worries. That was the expert from the immortal realm who was hunting him down. Because even if the expert from the immortal realm came to the immortal devil realm, it would be very difficult for him to conduct a large-scale search. The light of ascension enveloped Xiaolingyu and quickly entered the space tunnel. Even though Xiaolingyu could now look down on the cultivation realm, this circle of five-colored light could still firmly hold him in place, making him unable to move at all. According to Enshui, even the top experts of the immortal realm would find it hard to resist the five-colored light that fell from the immortal devil realm. After the light of ascension entered the space tunnel, its speed gradually increased. Moreover, it was constantly flying forward. When the speed reached a certain level, the cultivators would faint. Because the agitation of the soul was too strong, ordinary Mahayana stage cultivators couldn't withstand it at all. However, with this speed and rotation, ordinary nine tribulation experts could persevere until the end. Naturally, Xiaolingyu had it easier. Xiaolingyu didn't know how much time had passed. About 2 or 3 years, the five-colored light that enveloped his body suddenly disappeared. He was now in a desolate wilderness. Feeling the aura around him, Xiaolingyu couldn't help but sigh. I'm actually in the devil realm. The surrounding space pressure was very strong. It was more than 1,000 times stronger than the cultivation realm. If an ordinary Mahayana stage cultivator ascended here, it would be difficult to fly 3 feet above the ground. The devil chi in the space was not very dense. It was enough to prove that this was the devil realm and not the immortal realm. Xiaolingyu wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he casually found a place to sit cross-legged. He first felt and familiarized himself with the space of the devil realm, as well as the composition of the energy here. Like the cultivation realm, the devil realm space also had the power of chaos. Moreover, it was of a higher level. However, it was also very thin. Cultivating by absorbing the power of chaos in the space would be very slow. Xiaolingyu mainly relied on transforming the energy of spirit stones and immortal stones into the power of chaos to increase his power in the cultivation realm. Ever since his chaotic nascent soul was demonized, he found that absorbing the power of the devil spirit in the devil stones could also increase his chaotic power. Moreover, it was easier to refine and absorb. Presumably, this was one of the reasons why he ascended to the devil realm instead of the immortal realm. After sitting quietly for 2 days, he got up and tried to fly. Flying freely was not a problem, but his speed was too slow. Even with the wings of extreme speed, he couldn't go much faster. Moreover, the consumption of his power increased a lot. This had something to do with the great spatial pressure in the devil realm. After familiarizing himself with his speed, Xiaolingyu began to try to activate the spells and divine abilities he had mastered, as well as drive his magic treasures. To Xiaolingyu's relief, the power of his divine abilities and spells did not weaken. It was just that the movements they created were much smaller. In the cultivation realm, Xiaolingyu's seal of chaos could turn a radius of hundreds of miles into ruins. It could even cause the space to surge. However, in the devil realm, it could only blast open a large hole less than 100 feet in diameter. It had no effect on the space of the Devil Realm at all. As for the release of his consciousness, Xiaoling Yu could only see everything within a radius of a few dozen miles. He couldn't go any further. Sure enough, it's a higher-level space. I'll have to keep a low profile here in the future. However, this is the Devil Realm, not the Immortal Realm. The cultivators in the Devil Realm seem to be bloodthirsty and warlike. I hope they won't provoke me. Xiaoling Yu muttered to himself as he began to slowly walk in a direction. This wilderness seemed very large, but Xiaoling Yu only took 3 days to walk to the end. He saw a large palace-like building that was 100 feet tall. There was a stone tablet at the entrance of the main hall with the words, "Ascenders enter," written on it. Xiaoling Yu followed the instructions and pushed open the door of the main hall. However, a strong aura immediately hit him in the face, causing him, who was already very careful, to immediately take a few steps back in fright. However, that aura was not very strong and could only pose a threat to Deshang stage cultivators. For Xiaoling Yu, it was just a light breeze. Fortunately, Xiaoling Yu's strength was far beyond the Deshang stage, so he could ignore this aura. If it was an ordinary Deshang stage cultivator who ascended, they would definitely be injured by this aura. There was no one here, so even if they were injured, they would have time to recuperate. After the aura blew over, the door of the main hall closed again. After Xiaoling Yu pondered for a moment, he pushed the door open again. There was still a surge of aura, but this time he did not take half a step back. Instead, he entered the main hall. The main hall was very empty. There was only a transmission array standing alone in the center of the main hall. It was obvious that he could leave by taking this transmission array. Xiaoling Yu walked in front of the teleportation array and saw a stone tablet that wasn't very tall beside the teleportation array. On it was written, "This transmission array can lead to the Chepo sect. If you can be chosen by a master of the Chepo sect, you can enter the sect to cultivate and obtain a high-level devil art. From then on, you can step onto the path of cultivation." Xiaoling Yu estimated that this Chepo sect was definitely not an ordinary small sect, so he did not enter the transmission array. Instead, he looked at the main hall a few more times before turning around and going out. Xiaoling Yu had no intention of joining any sect. He did not want to be restricted, especially some big sections. There must be many masters in them. He did not want to come into contact with those masters as soon as he ascended, lest he be seen through by others and get into trouble. He had reached the end of the wilderness. In addition to the main hall with the transmission array, there was only a towering mountain range in front of him. Xiaoling Yu looked at the height of the mountain range and gave up the idea of flying directly because he could not fly up at all. The spatial pressure in the Devil Realm was stronger the higher one went. With Xiaoling Yu's current strength, he could only fly a few thousand feet. However, the mountain was obviously no less than 100,000 feet high. After walking around the foot of the mountain for 4 hours, Xiaoling Yu found an extremely narrow mountain path. At the entrance of the mountain path, there was a stone tablet with the words, "This leads to the outside," written on it. The mountain path could only allow one person to pass through at a time. Both sides of the path were extremely flat, as if the path had been cut by a sharp sword. After walking for 2 hours, the mountain path came to an end. However, there was an almost transparent barrier of light blocking the path. Xiaoling Yu first tested it. Seeing that the barrier of light did not have any offensive power, he braced himself and walked over. To his surprise, his body easily passed through the barrier of light. Behind the barrier of light was a forest. Dozens of cultivators blocked Xiaoling Yu's line of sight, making it impossible for him to see what was around him. "Little brother, you've just ascended to the Devil Realm, so you don't know much about the situation here. I happen to be free today. Why don't I take you around and help you understand the Devil Realm? Little brother, I see that your aptitude is ordinary. I'm afraid that it will be difficult for you to establish yourself in the Devil Realm in the future. Are you willing to join our Thousand Demon sect?" Our Thousand Demon sect is a well-known sect in this area. Little brat, You should join our rainbow demon village. Xiaoling Yu had just walked out when he was surrounded by those cultivators. Then, noisy voices rang in his ears. His 2 arms were tightly grabbed by more than 10 hands. Get out my way. Our East Battle Devil sect wants this brat. Chapter 2:15. Following the sound, he saw a cultivator with a rough appearance, a burly figure, thick eyebrows, and big eyes walking towards him. That cultivator gave Xiaoling Yu a feeling that he looked very much like Li Kuei from the water margin. Behind him were 2 indifferent men wearing black cloaks. This kid can't even enter the Chepo sect transmission hall. What are you guys fighting for? The burly cultivator walked in front of Xiaoling Yu, and without even looking at him, he roared at the surrounding cultivators who were very enthusiastic towards Xiaoling Yu just a moment ago. How could he know that it wasn't that Xiaoling Yu couldn't enter that hall, but that he didn't want to join any large sect right after ascending to the devil world? He just wanted to be alone and have some peace. Then the burly cultivator said to Xiaoling Yu, "It just so happens that our East Battle Devil sect is lacking a few servants to take care of the devil beasts. Come with us, kid." After saying this, the burly cultivator didn't ask Xiaoling Yu whether he was willing or not, and directly turned around, as if he was sure that Xiaoling Yu wouldn't dare to disobey him. Xiaoling Yu had already sensed that the burly cultivator's strength was pretty good, comparable to a 7th tribulation loose devil of the Xiojin world. The 2 cultivators wearing black cloaks behind him were comparable to 5th tribulation loose devils, and the other cultivators around them were only a bit more powerful than late Mahayana stage cultivators. This kind of cultivation base can also be arrogant in the devil world. Xiaoling Yu was a bit confused. Why isn't this kid moving? If he angers Jiang Kuei, he'll suffer. Maybe he'll lose his life just after ascending and won't even understand what kind of place the devil world is. Looking at his dull appearance, I know he's definitely not a smart person. Not good. Jiang Kuei turned around. While Xiaoling Yu was in a daze, the surrounding cultivators had already started discussing. The burly cultivator also turned around and stared at Xiaoling Yu with a pair of big eyes with a bit of anger. What? Can't you lift your legs? You want me to carry you away? Xiaoling Yu was a proud person, but it was precisely because of his pride that he did not want to argue with such a cultivator. He immediately smiled and said, Coming. Humph. Jiang Kuei snorted coldly. Then he turned around again and slowly walked away with his 2 followers. Xiaoling Yu followed behind at a moderate pace and thought to herself, let's go to the East Battle Demonic sect first. It's not a bad idea to take a look at the situation. I don't think the East Battle Demonic sect has any powerful experts. Xiaoling Yu was not familiar with the devil world, especially the nearby cultivation world. She felt that it was better not to walk blindly. It would not be too late to make a low-key inquiry first before making a fuss. However, Xiaoling Yu has heard all the discussions of those practitioners just now. He can guess that the Xiuji world in this vicinity should be a relatively low-level place in the devil realm. Even a 7th tribulation loose devil can make those practitioners feel afraid, so one can imagine what level the practitioners in this vicinity are at. Boy, it's your fortune to be able to enter our East Battle Demonic sect. You should know that every year, countless people want to rely on us, but we ignore them. Although you'll only be an outer court disciple in charge of raising demonic beasts, if you perform well, you'll enter the inner court sooner or later. If you're accepted as a disciple by an elder, your future will be limitless. After walking for about an hour, Jiang Kuei probably felt that it was too boring, so he began to chat with Xiaoling Yu. Boy, I'll definitely do my part and cultivate diligently. Xiaoling Yu tactfully replied, It's not enough to just do your part and cultivate diligently. As a disciple of our East Battle Demonic sect, you must be shrewd and ruthless. Otherwise, you'll be easily schemed against. If you're not careful, you'll lose your life. Jiang Kuei nodded with satisfaction and seemed to kindly remind him. Yes, I'll remember. Xiaoling Yu repeatedly echoed. You were recruited by me, Jiang Kuei, so you're considered one of my people. If anyone bullies you in the future, you can mention my name. Jiang Kuei seemed to be very righteous. Boy, thanks, Senior, for your guidance. Xiaoling Yu seemed to be very grateful. When Jiang Kuei spoke, he didn't seem to be hypocritical at all. He was probably a straightforward person. However, from the dense murderous aura that overflowed from Jiang Kuei's body, it could be seen that he was definitely not a soft-hearted person. This jade slip has recorded some basic information about the demon world. Take a look at it. If you have any questions, you can ask. Jiang Kuei threw an unremarkable jade slip to Xiaoling Yu. After Xiaoling Yu thanked him again, he sank his consciousness into the jade slip. Xiaoling Yu knew most of the contents of this jade slip from his father-in-law, and Shui. Only the situation of the nearby cultivation world was of interest to him. Like the cultivation world, the demon world was also in the vast and boundless starry sky. It was also composed of countless continents. These continents were not connected to each other, but they could be traveled through the teleportation array. The danger and difficulty of flying through the demon world's starry sky was even greater than flying in the cultivation world's starry sky. Ordinary cultivators didn't dare and didn't have the ability to fly into the starry sky. The cultivation realms of the immortal world cultivators from low to high were Earth Immortal, Heaven Immortal, Gold Immortal, Great Principal Golden Immortal, Overarching Heaven Supreme Immortal, Nine Heaven Shin Immortal, Immortal Monarch, Immortal Emperor, and Immortal Prime. The cultivation realms of the demon world cultivators were also 9, from low to high were Earth Devil, Heavenly Devil, Devil King, True Devil, Spirit Devil, Profound Devil, Devil Monarch, Devil Emperor, and Devil Prime. Ordinary cultivators in the cultivation world would ascend to the immortal world when they reached the peak of the late Mahayana stage. It wouldn't take long for them to break through from the late Mahayana stage to the Earth Immortal stage. Devil cultivators would break through to the Earth Devil stage. If they went through the 9 tribulations and ascended to the immortal world, they would be at the peak of the late Golden Immortal stage, Devil King. It wouldn't take long for them to directly become a master of the early Almighty Immortal stage, True Devil. The 9 tribulations experts would go through tribulations every 1,000 years in the cultivation world. Although it was extremely dangerous, if they could go through it and ascend to the immortal world, the benefits would be unimaginable. It should be known that there were 3 big realms between the Earth Immortal stage and the Almighty Immortal stage, and many ordinary cultivators would have to go through at least hundreds of thousands of years to reach these 3 big realms. Of course, the number of cultivators who could successfully reach the 9 tribulations in the cultivation world was pitifully few. Xiaoling Yu's current realm was at the peak of the late chaotic aggregation stage. In theory, it was equivalent to the peak of the late Golden Immortal stage, Devil King. However, Xiaoling Yu should actually be at the early Almighty Immortal stage, True Devil, because in the cultivation world, it could be seen that he was 1 realm higher than the 9 tribulations expert. Although the 9 tribulations expert was only 1 step away from this realm, the difference of 1 step made the strength of the 2 completely incomparable. Jiang Kuei's realm should only be at the middle Heavenly Devil stage, and the 2 behind him should be at the late Earth Devil stage. Both of them were at the lower end of the Devil world and couldn't be regarded as experts at all. Speaking of experts, in the entire Devil world, only those who reached the Devil Monarch stage could be regarded as real experts, and those who reached the True Devil stage could be regarded as minor experts. Xiaoling Yu had just reached the level of minor expert. The Devil World continent, where Xiaoling Yu was currently located, was called the Blood Moon continent. It was said that at night, a blood-colored crescent moon would rise in the night sky of the Blood Moon continent. That was how the Blood Moon continent got its name. The Blood Moon continent was very vast. Even a minor expert at the True Devil stage would need tens of thousands of years to fly from one end to the other. In this jade slip, only the name of this continent was mentioned. There was not much introduction to this continent. It could be seen that the East Pole Devil sect, or Jiang Kuei himself, was not a senior. The cultivation methods of the Devil World cultivators were more varied than those of the Immortal World. Most of the cultivators in the Immortal World had a pure heart and few desires. They absorbed the immortal spirit force from the heaven and earth, or the immortal spirit force from immortal stones to improve their cultivation. They also used their own years of comprehension to improve their soul realm. Devil Path cultivators, on the other hand, could not only absorb and refine the devil spirit force from the heaven and earth or immortal stones to improve their cultivation, but they could also use all kinds of vicious devil arts to absorb or devour the cultivation of other Devil Path cultivators for their own use. Some could even devour the energy of demonic beasts to improve themselves. As for the improvement of their soul realm, Devil Path cultivators generally didn't need to go into seclusion to comprehend. Most of them forcefully broke through or borrowed external forces. As a result, the realm of the Immortal World cultivators was more stable. Their state of mind was gentle and transcendent, but their strength improved slowly. Their fighting skills and combat awareness were not strong. The realm of the Devil Path cultivators was more superficial. Their state of mind was more violent and bloodthirsty. They were eager to improve, but their strength improved very quickly. The number of experts was more than that of the Immortal World. Their combat strength, especially their close combat ability, was far superior to that of the Immortal World cultivators of the same level. It was also because they were too warlike and bloodthirsty that the overall scale of the Devil World cultivators was not as large as that of the Immortal World. However, those who could establish themselves in the Devil World all had some skills. Is there anything you don't understand? Half an hour later, Jiang Kuei asked Xiaoling Yu, replying to Senior, "Not at the moment," Xiaoling Yu said politely. This was the first impression that Jiang Kuei gave him. It was not bad. Boy, don't be too confident. If you don't understand something, ask. Don't be too proud. There are many things that can't be guessed with imagination. I know that you are the top existences in the cultivation world. Each of you is used to being arrogant. However, this must be changed, because in the Devil World, you are the lowest existence. The people of the Devil World don't care about face. They care about who has the biggest fist. The strong are the lords, and the weak sometimes don't even have the power and opportunity to be a grandson. Jiang Kuei said in a tone of admonishing a junior. If this junior doesn't understand something in the future, I will sincerely ask Senior for advice. Xiaoling Yu seemed to be very sensible. In 2 more hours, we will arrive at the Eastern Devil Sect. You must remember that after entering the Devil Sect, don't casually inquire about things that have nothing to do with you. When walking, try to keep your head down. Don't look around. When talking, don't speak too loudly. It's best not to speak casually. If you see an elder, avoid them. If you can't avoid them, bend your body and salute them. Wait until the elder is far away. Jiang Kuei seemed to be very worried and repeatedly gave a few instructions. Chapter 216. In fact, the East Pole Demon Sect was only a third-rate sect on the Blood Moon continent. But no matter what, they could still be considered as a third-rate sect. There were countless small forces and organizations on the Blood Moon continent that could not be considered as a third-rate sect at all. Compared to them, the East Pole Demon Sect was naturally very powerful. The East Pole Demon Sect was located in the northwest corner of the Blood Moon continent. The sect's encampment was built in the depths of a mountain range. There was a large river at the entrance of the encampment and a mineral vein that could only produce mid-grade demon stones. The entrance of the demon sect's encampment was facing the upper flow of the river. However, it was only composed of 3 ordinary-looking stones. 2 stones were erected as the door frame, and a long horizontal stone was used as the lintel. There was no plaque. The words East Pole Demon Sect were engraved on the stone lintel. The words were completely blood-red and looked as if they were still dripping blood. There were no disciples guarding the entrance of the East Pole Demon Sect's encampment. There was only a huge, pitch-black, tiger-like demonic beast that crept at the entrance. Occasionally, when someone passed by, The demonic beast would slightly open its eyes. If a disciple of the demon sect came, it would close its eyes again. When Jiang Kuei and the other two brought Xiao Yu to the entrance, the demonic beast glanced at them first. But then it stared at Xiao Yu and let out a warning growl. It seemed to indicate that Xiao Yu should not take half a step closer. "Don't be afraid. It won't act rashly," Jiang Kuei said to Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu was not afraid. She just narrowed her eyes and glanced at it. She even used her mind to spy on it. At this time, Jiang Kuei took another step forward and said to the demonic beast politely, "This person is about to join the East Pole demon sect. Please let her pass." The demonic beast was only at the late stage of the heavenly demon realm. It was only a little stronger than Jiang Kuei. When it felt Xiao Yu's mind sweep past it, it immediately crept down and did not dare to raise its head. Jiang Kuei's level was too low, so he couldn't sense Xiao Yu's thoughts. He thought that his words had caused the demonic beast to prostrate itself. So he said to Xiao Yu, "It's closer to me. Other people have to wait outside when they bring someone in, but it'll still give me some face and let me in." As they spoke, Jiang Kuei and the other two walked towards the depths of the sect encampment. Xiao Yu followed with an undetectable smile. The layout of the East Pole Devil Sect's encampment was very simple. There weren't any flowers or plants that could be found in paradise. There was only a small path paved with rocks and some untended trees. Along the way, they saw quite a few Devil Sect cultivators. However, they did not greet each other. At most, they would take a few more glances before leaving in a hurry. As for the houses and other buildings, they were all piled up with boulders. There was not the slightest bit of beauty or order to speak of. There were also many restrictions and formations set up in the depths of the encampment. However, they were not very strong. At least, they could not compare to the blood-submerged demonic formation of the Black Blood Demon in the cultivation world. However, there were quite a few demonic beasts creeping around, staring at the cultivators coming in and out of the Devil Sect. Following a small gravel path, Jiang Kuei took Xiao Yu for the time it took to drink a cup of tea before arriving in front of a stone building. This stone building had 2 floors, but it could be considered a relatively large building in the encampment. There was an almost decayed wooden board above the stone building's lintel with the words Hall of Records written on it. After entering the stone building, they saw a hall less than 100 square meters. There was a long counter facing the door. Behind the counter was an old man sitting on a stone chair. In front of him stood a few Devil Sect disciples. "Oh, isn't this Senior Marshal Brother Jiang? How come you have time to come to the Hall of Records today? Could it be that you kidnapped this person?" In less than 3 breaths of time after entering, a young and handsome cultivator in brocade clothes walked up to Jiang Gan and asked with a curious look on his face, "You can come to the Hall of Records, but I can't?" Seeing the handsome cultivator, Jiang Kuei's expression immediately darkened. He coldly snorted and said, "What does it have to do with you whether or not I kidnapped him? Haha, it has nothing to do with me now. I don't know what will happen in the future." The handsome cultivator laughed. Silence in the Hall of Records. Just as the young cultivator finished speaking, an old but dignified voice resounded in the hall. When a young cultivator and Jiang Gan heard this, their expressions greatly changed. They immediately lowered their heads and bowed to the counter. The voice came from the old man behind the counter. He glanced at the two of them and then shifted his gaze to the cultivator standing in front of the counter. "I was the one who brought him here. If you have any devious ideas, you best find someone else. Otherwise what? Are you going to eat me? Eat you? I'm afraid of dirtying my mouth and stomach. You're not necessarily cleaner than me. At least I'm cleaner than you. Let's wait and see. Your master is about to go into seclusion. How many more days can you be arrogant? I've always relied on my own strength, unlike someone who relied on his face to curry favor with the seniors of the sect. You should pay attention to what you say. Which senior of the sect did I rely on my face to curry favor with? Do you have the guts to say it clearly? As long as you know it in your heart. I'm too lazy to talk about that nonsense." The young cultivator and Jiang Kuei were quiet for a moment before they started arguing again. However, their voices were very low, and they kept glancing at the counter intentionally or unintentionally, as if they were very afraid of the old man behind the counter. Fanyu, you didn't come to the Hall of Records just to quarrel, right? Unknowingly, the cultivators in front of the counter had all left. The old man asked the young cultivator this question. The young and handsome cultivator called Fanyu immediately stopped arguing with Jiang Kuei in a low voice. He squeezed out a smile and walked to the front of the counter. He said respectfully, "Senior Brotherly, I'm here today to take the registration token of a Devil Sect disciple." Oh, could it be that the disciple was expelled from the sect again? Oldly frowned. Yes. Fanyu paused for a moment before replying. Expelled from the sect, it's clear that he's imprisoned him. After taking the registration token, he's going to kill him and then devour his cultivation. If you have the ability, go kill people from other sections. Don't just stare at your own people all day. Jiang Kuei mocked from behind. His voice wasn't too loud nor too soft, but everyone present could hear him. Do you have your master's token? Oldly didn't pursue the matter any further and asked. Of course I do. Otherwise, why would Fanyu dare to come here and disturb you? I don't have the right to expel people. Fanyu replied and took out a token that looked like a black ink slab. Which disciple's nameplate do you want to take? Old Manly glanced at the nameplate and asked with an indifferent expression. Wang Lin, Fanyu replied. What? Senior Wang Lin? Jiang Kuei was very surprised. Even Old Man Li's brows furrowed even tighter, but he still reached under the counter and pulled out a black, jade-like nameplate. Jiang Kuei stepped forward and anxiously said, Senior Li, you can't. That Senior Wang Lin definitely doesn't have any ill intentions towards our devil sect. He is also very righteous and always does his best. How could he have been expelled from the sect? When Old Li heard this, he paused for a moment. He seemed to think so as well. With my master's token here, could it be that you two senior brothers think that this little brother is spouting nonsense and deceiving you? Fanyu said confidently. Oomph. You just took a fancy to senior brother Wang Lin's cultivation, and he didn't like your petty habits. Because he said a few words about you, you became narrow-minded and wanted to harm him. Jiang Kuei retorted without any trace of politeness. Fanyu coldly replied, Senior Jiang, this is the Hall of Fame. You have to watch your words. Framing a fellow sect member is not a light crime. Framing a fellow sect member? Jiang Kuei, have never done something like that. You, on the other hand, do it all the time. Not only do you frame a fellow sect member, but you also often harm fellow sect members. Jiang Kuei's eyes were wide open as he angrily said, Okay, if you guys want to argue, go outside. Fanyu, you can take Wang Lin's registration token after you sign it. Old Li waved his hand to stop the two of them from arguing. He then threw a jade and a registration token on the table. Fanyu smiled proudly at Jiang Kuei. Then he first inserted a wisp of his soul imprint into the jade slip as a form of proof, then took the registration token away. Jiang Kuei angrily asked, Senior Li, how could you give Senior Wang Lin's registration token to a petty person like him? What? Do I need you to teach me how to do things? Old Li's expression became serious as he unhappily said. Jiang Kuei was like a frosted eggplant. He dejectedly said, Little brother doesn't dare. Since you've entered the demonic path, you shouldn't be merciful. When you want to kill, you should kill, and you should use any means necessary. In this regard, that petty person you speak of is much better than you. Us demonic cultivators not only need to be ruthless and murderous, but also have to be cunning. Only then can we live longer and go further. Old Li added, but it sounded like an explanation. Thank you, Senior Li, for your teachings. Jiang Kuei bitterly said. Although he wasn't convinced, he didn't dare to argue. In the future, it's best if you don't provoke Fanyu. Although your strength isn't inferior to his, your intelligence is far inferior. If you fight with him, you'll easily lose. After Old Li reminded him again, he pointed at Shaoling Yu and asked, You're going to register him, right? Yes, Senior Li. Jiang Kuei said he just ascended from the lower realm. I heard that the sect was lacking servants to raise demonic beasts, so I brought him back. You're quite considerate of the sect. Old Li first praised him, then looked at Xiaoling Yu and said, Servant? That's a bit unfair. Jiang Kuei dryly laughed. It's a bit unfair. But once his cultivation is high enough, I'll have him find a master to formally enter the sect. Old Manly looked at Xiaoling Yu again and asked with a smile, Little brother, did you really just ascend from the lower realms? Yes. Xiaoling Yu nodded. Chapter 217. Senior, I'm willing. Xiaoling Yu replied respectfully. Since that's the case, you can go to the Hall of Beasts and become a disciple in name. Old Manly smiled and took out a black jade tablet. Leave a strand of your spiritual strength inside, and you'll be a member of the East Pole Demon Sect. Xiaoling Yu didn't hesitate in the slightest. He immediately sent a strand of his spiritual imprint into the jade tablet, and it became his nameplate. If he was expelled in the future, the jade tablet would be destroyed as well. The registration is done. I'll take him to the Hall of Beasts first. Jiang Kuei cupped his fists and bid farewell to Old Manly. Go. Old Manly nodded, then said, just as Jiang Kuei turned around, In the future, take good care of this little brother. I think he's pretty good. Jiang Kuei was a bit confused, but he still turned around and nodded in response. After leaving the Hall of Beasts, Jiang Kuei said curiously, Senior Brotherly seems to have a good impression of you, but he's always been very cold to everyone and everything. He rarely smiles, and he doesn't say many nice words. Today, he seemed to be a different person. Xiaoling Yu was also a bit suspicious. Just now in the Hall of Beasts, he'd clearly felt an almost imperceptible consciousness spying on him. However, because his body's quality was too high, and his cultivation was too high, that consciousness couldn't see through his true cultivation. And the owner of that was definitely that old man, surnamed Li. Since someone else was spying on him, Xiaoling Yu wasn't too polite. He also used his consciousness to size up Old Man Li, but found that his aura was only at the peak of the late heavenly demon stage. Old Man Li was only half a step away from the Demon King realm. Although that half step was within reach, it also seemed unreachable. He'd probably been stuck in that realm for many years, unable to break through. He'd probably encountered some unexpected situation. That seniorly seems like an expert, Xiaoling Yu said calmly. He can't be considered an expert, but his original seniority wasn't low. I remember that when I first entered the sect, he was already in charge of the Hall of Fame. Furthermore, his cultivation base was also at the peak of the late stage of the Devil King realm. Now that tens of thousands of years have passed, he still looks the same. It is said that he's been stuck in the late stage of the Omen realm for many years. Even when my master first entered the sect, he was already at the peak of the late stage of the Omen realm. Moreover, he has always been a small steward in the Hall of Fame. Jiang Kuei shook his head and explained. If that was the case, it was no wonder that Jiang Kuei and Fan Yu were so respectful of Old Man Li. Although Old Man Li's cultivation wasn't very high, his seniority was frighteningly high. Not to mention Jiang Kuei's generation of disciples. Even Jiang Kuei's master and martial uncles didn't dare to be arrogant in front of Old Man Li. However, the Devil Realm and other places respected strength. Although Old Man Li had been in the Eastern Devil Sect for many years, because of his cultivation base, all the Devil Sect disciples who had reached the Omen Realm all called him Senior Martial Brother Li and not Martial Uncle Li or Martial Ancestor Li. However, while Jiang Kuei called Old Man Li Senior Martial Brother, Jiang Kuei's master also called Old Man Li Senior Martial Brother. Jiang Kuei's master was at the late stage of the Devil King realm, but none of the cultivators in his generation would put on airs in front of Old Man Li just because their cultivation base was high. It was said that there was once a Devil Sect cultivator who didn't know any better. When he reached the Devil King realm, he put on airs in front of Old Man Li. Not long after, he was personally expelled from the Eastern Devil Sect by the sect master. Xiaoling Yu felt that Old Man Li wasn't as simple as he seemed on the surface. At the very least, his soul realm definitely wasn't just at the peak of the late stage of the Omen realm. If that was really the case, then Old Man Lee shouldn't have been able to detect even the slightest bit of his aura. However, Old Man Lee should have detected a bit of it just now. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so polite to him. As they walked, Jiang Kuei seemed to be worried as he reminded him, "When you reach the Imperial Beast Hall, you have to be careful. Even the cultivators in the sect have to be on guard, especially those vile people like Feng Yu. They won't show mercy to you just because you're from the same sect. If you offend them, they'll do everything in their power to kill you." This junior will definitely be careful. Xiaoling Yu nodded and replied. Jiang Kuei quickly brought Xiaoling Yu to the entrance of the Eastern Devil Sect's Imperial Beast Hall. He said, "My Eastern Devil Sect raises devil beasts for 2 reasons. First, to cultivate some powerful devil beasts to serve the sect. Second, to allow disciples with good aptitudes to devour and refine the devil beast power. Therefore, the Imperial Beast Hall is very important to our Eastern Devil Sect. The entire sect has several thousand eyes watching this place. If a single mistake is made, it will cause a lot of trouble." Xiaoling Yu suddenly felt that although Jiang Kuei had a rough appearance, he actually had a woman's heart. He actually kept reminding him, someone who had just ascended and had no relationship with him. This junior was recommended by Senior. "I will be careful in everything. I won't cause any trouble for Senior," Xiaoling Yu calmly replied. Along the way to the entrance of the Imperial Beast Hall, Xiaoling Yu didn't see a single Devil King stage cultivator. He estimated that the strongest person in the Eastern Devil Sect wouldn't be that strong. At most, they would be at the True Demon stage. For Xiaoling Yu, the most important task at hand was to go to the Immortal World. He also wanted to go to the Immortal World to find his wife, Anya. However, Anya hadn't ascended to the Immortal World yet, so he didn't need to be too anxious. He first settled down and familiarized himself with the situation in the Devil World. The Eastern Devil Sect wasn't very strong, but it wasn't very weak either. It was really suitable for him to stay here. The Imperial Beast Hall of the Eastern Devil Sect was located in the deepest part of the Eastern Devil Sect's encampment. It occupied a vast valley. The entrance of the valley was the entrance of the Imperial Beast Hall. There was no one guarding it, only a single devil beast crouching there. Jiang Kuei led Xiaoling Yu into the valley and saw a variety of devil beasts. However, the cultivation of these devil beasts wasn't high. The strongest among them was only at the intermediate Earth Demon stage. They were afraid of the aura released by Jiang Kuei and didn't dare to come close. In the depths of the valley, there were rows of tall houses. Waves of earth-shaking roars came from these houses, making the whole valley seem very noisy. The ones walking around the valley are either young beasts that have just been born or magical beasts that have yet to reach the late Earth Demon stage. Once they reach the Heavenly Demon stage, they will be imprisoned in these houses or in the caves dug out from all sides. Jiang Kuei said, pointing to the houses. When they arrived in front of a row of relatively low houses, a young cultivator came up to them and said with a smile, "Senior Jiang, you're here. Well, is your steward in the valley?" Jiang Kuei nodded indifferently and asked, "The steward is here. I'll help you ask him to come," the young cultivator said and ran away. After waiting for 100 breaths of time, the young cultivator came over with a short and slightly hunchbacked old man. "Junior Marshal Brother Jiang, how come you have time to come to the Imperial Beast Hall today?" The hunchbacked old man asked politely. Senior Marshal Brother Zhang, this little brother comes to see you whenever I have time." Jiang Kuei first responded with a smile, then patted Xiaoling Yu's shoulder and said, "This is someone who just ascended from the lower realms and is willing to join our East Demon Sect. He just went to the Hall of Fame to register his name. I'm going to let him stay here and help Senior Marshal Brother Zhang." Junior Marshal Brother Jiang is really anxious. The Imperial Beast Hall is currently short of manpower. "Brother, you brought me a person. If you have time, I'll definitely invite you to drink a few more cups," the hunchbacked old man said gratefully. "In that case, I'll leave him to Senior Marshal Brother. Everything will be arranged by Senior Marshal Brother. I have other things to do, so I won't bother you anymore." "Take care, Junior Marshal Brother." Jiang Kuei left the Imperial Beast Hall accompanied by the young cultivator. The hunchbacked old man asked, "What's your name?" "This one is Shaoling Yu." Shaoling Yu cupped his fists and replied, "Come with me." The hunchbacked old man said, then turned around and walked toward a room. The room's furnishings were very simple. There was only a table and a few chairs. Moreover, they were all made of ordinary stones. "Come, take a seat first." The old man sat behind the table, then pointed at the stone chair in front of the table and said, "Senior, thank you for giving me a seat." Shaoling Yu sat down unhurriedly. "Since Junior Marshal Brother Jiang recommended you, this old man will naturally take care of you. However, the Imperial Beast Hall has its own rules. If you violate the rules, you'll be punished. Here's a jade slip. Some of the rules of the East Demon Sect and the Imperial Beast Hall are engraved inside. Take a good look at it carefully," the hunchbacked old man said as he put an ordinary jade slip on the table. Shaoling Yu picked up the jade slip and scanned it with his mind. He said, "This one will definitely remember it." There wasn't much content in the jade slip. Not to mention Shaoling Yu, even a foundation establishment cultivator would be able to memorize it in an instant. "You just arrived at the Imperial Beast Hall. There are some things you need to familiarize yourself with for a while. First, familiarize yourself with the young beasts in the valley. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask your fellow disciples for advice." After the hunchbacked old man said this, he stood up and walked towards the door. Just as he reached the door, he turned around and said, "In the future, this room will be the place where you usually cultivate. There's a secret room inside." After the hunchbacked old man left, Shaoling Yu let out a long sigh of relief. Then, he began to look around the room that belonged to him. The room wasn't big. The living room was only about 20 square meters. The secret room inside was even smaller. It was only 10 feet long and wide. However, when he first entered the demon realm, he finally found a good place to stay. Naturally, Shaoling Yu wouldn't be too picky. Not long after, the young cultivator who went to send Jiang Kuei came in. He said with a calm expression, "You've just ascended?" When Shaoling Yu saw that the young cultivator was about to be lectured by a senior expert, he originally wanted to make friends with him. However, at this moment, he lost interest and replied, "Yes." The young cultivator didn't hold back. He immediately sat down and said, "Since you've just ascended and just entered the sect, you need to be more diligent in the future. Also, you need to be more polite." Shaoling Yu responded with a nasal sound. However, he didn't look at the young cultivator. Chapter 218. "Then I'll have to trouble you to nurture and guide me in the future," Shaoling Yu said with a smile. That's more like it." The young cultivator nodded with satisfaction, then said, "You've just ascended, so you have 2 months to familiarize yourself with the space pressure in the devil world. After 2 months, you'll have to start working. I'll come and find you then." "Okay," Shaoling Yu replied indifferently, not intending to send him off. Another hothead who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. "You'll suffer in the future." The young cultivator cursed in his heart, then went out. 2 months was not a long time. Shaoling Yu was not disturbed, nor did he take the initiative to go out. He just meditated and cultivated in the secret room. Before ascending, Shaoling Yu had contributed almost all of his wealth to Shantian Academy. Originally, he did not have any devil stones. Now that he was in the devil world, he had to rely on himself to fight for everything. Although he still had some immortal crystals, after his chaotic nascent soul was demonized, absorbing immortal spiritual energy to cultivate was far less effective than using devil stones. He did not want to waste these immortal crystals, so he did not take them out to absorb. After all, he still had to go to the immortal world in the future. After 2 months of cultivation, Shaoling Yu did not feel the slightest improvement in his cultivation. At this point, if he wanted to improve again, it was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Moreover, now that he had reached the peak of the chaotic convergence stage, if he wanted to improve his strength, he had to break through to the 4th revolution of the 9-revolution chaos formula, the chaotic void refining stage. Like the previous 3 revolutions, If he wanted to smoothly enter the chaotic void refining stage, he did not just have to rush through the peak of the chaotic convergence stage. He also had to make a lot of preparations. These preparations required materials as well as finished pills. More importantly, there needed to be a suitable location. If he tried to break through to the chaotic void refining stage without any preparations, the success rate was definitely less than 10%. Originally, Xiaoling Yu still had a plan to break through to the chaotic void refining stage, but his chaotic nascent soul had been demonized, so his original plan was ruined. He could only draw up a new plan according to his own situation. The experience that his master had left him was almost useless. He had just arrived in the devil world, and the materials for breaking through to the chaotic void refining stage were not ordinary goods. In a short time, he did not expect to be able to collect all of them, and he did not have so many devil stones to collect them. After thinking about it, Xiaoling Yu still felt that he had to make his own fortune first, so that he could buy the materials he wanted. With his current strength, the risk of snatching the materials he wanted was too great. The treasures he wanted were not something that ordinary cultivators could take out. My name is Miao Yen. I entered the sect 5,000 years earlier than you. You can call me Senior Brother Miao, or Brother Miao in the future. I'll take you to familiarize yourself with those young beasts first. After the young cultivator called Xiao Lingyu out of the secret room, he took Xiao Lingyu to the valley. This is the sword-spike demon lizard. It was born 1,000 years ago and only has the cultivation of the combination stage. It can't run in the devil world yet and can only crawl slowly. It has a bad temper and likes to eat the fresh meat of snake creatures. This is the black blood demon rat. It has black blood and is very poisonous. Although it only has the cultivation of the crossing calamity stage, its venom can easily kill a Mahayana stage cultivator. When it reaches the earth demon realm, its venom will be feared even by the masters of the heavenly demon realm. It is timid by nature, but it likes to sneak attack in the dark. It likes to eat some grains with the power of demon spirits. This is the three-eyed demon deer. It has a third eye on the back of its head. It is young now and can't open it. Only when it reaches the earth demon realm can it open its third eye. That eye can emit a strange light that can easily kill enemies of the same level. It has a gentle personality and generally doesn't like to move its nest. But when it fights, it is the kind that doesn't care about its life. It likes to eat demon ginseng that is more than 1,000 years old. There were too many species of young beasts in the valley. Even though Miao Yen spoke quickly, it still took him 2 days to introduce all of them. If Xiaoling Yu remembered correctly, there were more than 3,000 species of young beasts in the valley. However, none of them had the bloodline of a real divine beast. At most, they were high-grade immortal beasts, and they had evolved to become so. After the introduction, Miao Yin let out a long sigh and said to Xiaoling Yu, "There are only 3 people in the Imperial Beast Hall, including you and me. Besides you and me, there is also Senior Brother Jia. But recently, there was a shortage of people in other places, so he was transferred over. Now, there's only the 2 of us. These beasts need to be fed every once in a while. I can't do it alone, so I hope you can get used to it quickly. It will save me some trouble. I will do my best." Xiaoling Yu said perfunctorily. "There are materials for feeding young beasts in this storage bag. You have to keep it well. From today onwards, you will feed the young beasts, and I will supervise. These young beasts are the treasures of our East Pole Devil sect. You have to take good care of them. If something goes wrong, both of us will die." After Miao Yin reminded him, he strode into a house and didn't come out again. Xiaoling Yu scanned the storage bag with his mind. He first found a jade slip. After taking it out, he found out that the jade slip had a detailed description of some materials that were used to feed young beasts. After returning to his house, Xiaoling Yu began to comb through the information about the young beasts and the materials for feeding them. He came out a day later. In any case, he had nothing to do now. Xiaoling Yu also felt that raising beasts was also a skill. Therefore, he threw himself into this new job. However, he soon found that if he had to feed these thousands of young beasts by himself, he wouldn't have any free time. After feeding the young beasts at the back, they would be hungry. After feeding the young beasts at the front, they would be hungry again. After repeating this process, Xiaoling Yu basically didn't have to do anything. If the two of them worked together, they would have half of the free time. If the three of them worked together, then this job was actually very easy. However, he was now the only one working together. This made Xiaoling Yu a little angry. After another month, Miao Yin still didn't come out. It was clear that he wanted to give the job that originally belonged to the two of them to Xiaoling Yu alone. No matter how magnanimous Xiaoling Yu was, he couldn't stand it anymore. After all, he wanted to find time to understand the situation in the Devil Realm. He also wanted to buy some time for his own cultivation. On this day, Xiaoling Yu fed all the young beasts. Ignoring the hunger of the first batch of young beasts, he went straight to Miao Yan's room. Miao Yan's room was the same as Xiaoling Yu's. There was only a living room and a secret room. At this time, there was no one in the living room. Miao Yan was obviously in the secret room. The secret room's door overflowed with the aura of a restriction. Xiaoling Yu gently pressed on the restriction. Xiaoling Yu had already seen that Miao Yan had just reached the early stage of the Earth Demon Realm. Even if he was in seclusion now, he wasn't making any major breakthroughs. Xiaoling Yu knocking on his door now wouldn't affect him too much. After only 3 breaths of time passed after the restriction was triggered, Miao Yan walked out with a smile on his face. However, when he saw that only Xiaoling Yu was in the room, his smile immediately disappeared. It was replaced by confusion and anger. "Why did you come knocking on my door?" No matter how angry he was, Miao Yan felt that he should first clarify the situation. If this kid was sent by a senior to call him, it would be inappropriate for him to lose his temper. "There are too many young beasts in the Imperial Beast Hall. I can't handle it alone. I want to ask Brother Miao to come out of seclusion and help," Xiaoling Yu said truthfully. What a good-for-nothing. How could I handle it alone when you weren't here?" Miao Yan heard this and cursed angrily. However, he still left the room. Xiaoling Yu narrowed his eyes. If Miao Yan hadn't left quickly, he really didn't know if he would have been able to hold himself back. However, after a while, he felt that he shouldn't be so calculative with a small fry of this level. Thus, the anger in his heart dissipated and he quickly followed. "Watch how I feed these young beasts. If you learn, I can guarantee that you'll be half as relaxed as before." After Miao Yan finished speaking, he took out a storage bag and began to feed the young beasts. After 5 days, Miao Yan had completed a round of feeding. However, Xiaoling Yu needed 10 days to complete a round of feeding. He had indeed saved half of the time. Although feeding like this saves time, all the young beasts are only half full. Although they will still wait for the same amount of time before they say that they're hungry, this will affect their growth rate. If someone from the sect comes to investigate, it may cause trouble. Xiaoling Yu frowned and said, "If someone comes to investigate, feed them enough. If no one comes to investigate, feed them less. After all, our sect has to spend a lot of magic stones to purchase these materials. It may not be a bad thing to save a little. Furthermore, usually no one comes to investigate this matter. Even the steward turns a blind eye to this." After Miao Yan said this, he returned to his room. In the beginning, Xiaoling Yu still couldn't bear to feed these charmingly naive young beasts in small amounts. However, as time passed, he gradually lost his patience. These young beasts weren't raised by his family, so there was no point in him feeling sorry for them. Furthermore, feeding them in small amounts would only affect the growth rate of these young beasts. It wouldn't affect their future. After being busy for another month, Xiaoling Yu also began to feed these young beasts according to Miao Yan's method. This also saved him half of the time. With the time saved, Xiaoling Yu found time to meditate and cultivate. Chapter 219. Who are you? Xiaoling Yu stood up and asked with a frown. "I am Jia Gang. I'm also in charge of feeding these young beasts," the person replied. "So it's Senior Brother Jia. Senior Brother Miao taught me how to feed the young beasts, so I am able to handle it alone," Xiaoling Yu explained without a change in expression. One opportunist. Just wait for the steward's punishment. After saying this, Jia Gang did not listen to Xiaoling Yu's explanation and immediately turned to leave. Not long after, Xiaoling Yu and Miao Yin were brought before the hunchbacked old man, while Jia Gang stood behind the old man with a look of righteous indignation. Xiaoling Yu, was it really Miao Yin who told you to feed the young beasts? The hunchbacked old man asked with a cold expression. Yes, Xiaoling Yu replied, and repeated what Miao Yin had told her. Huh. The hunchbacked old man slammed his hand on the table, causing the entire room to shake. He narrowed his eyes and said to Miao Yin, You Miao Yin, how dare you? It's fine if you don't learn well, but you actually instigate your fellow disciple. Steward, please calm down. Xiaoling Yu is just spouting nonsense. I never said that to him. I only recorded the information on feeding the young beasts in a jade slip and gave it to him. Steward, please investigate. Miao Yin was so frightened that he directly knelt on the ground, but he still forced himself to calm down and defend himself. Xiaoling Yu could not help but frown when she heard that Miao Yin did not admit to it. If Miao Yin did not testify, and she did not have any evidence, she was afraid that she would have to bear the blame alone. Sure enough, the hunchbacked old man then said to Xiaoling Yu, Miao Yin said that he never instructed you in such a way, and he even gave you the jade slip with the details of feeding the young beasts. Do you have anything to say? Xiaoling Yu shook her head and replied, He insists on denying it. I can't do anything about it. Since that's the case, I can only count this debt on you. Since this is your first offense, and you were brought here by Junior Marshal Brother Jiang not long ago, I can be lenient with you this time. You will be punished with the sole responsibility of feeding the young beasts for the next 30 years. You're not allowed to slack off, otherwise you will be expelled from the sect. At this point, the hunchbacked old man asked Xiaoling Yu, Are you willing to accept your punishment? At this moment, Miao Yin and Jia Gang secretly exchanged glances. Both of them had a smug look in their eyes. Although it was only for a moment, Xiaoling Yu caught it. It was obvious that Miao Yin had colluded with Jia Gang to frame Xiaoling Yu. Miao Yin must have rarely used the half-feeding method in the past. He must have deliberately dug a hole for Xiaoling Yu to jump into. The hunchbacked old man in charge would not turn a blind eye to the halved feeding method. Instead, he would severely punish the culprit. However, the old man in charge did not seem to be someone who liked to investigate too deeply. There were obviously suspicious points in this matter, but he had no intention of investigating it. I'm willing to accept it. Xiaoling Yu still said, with an indifferent expression. In that case, you may leave. The hunchbacked old man in charge closed his eyes and waved at Xiaoling Yu and the other two. Although she had suffered a great loss, Xiaoling Yu had no intention of questioning Miao Yin. She only returned to her room alone with an unmoved expression. The more Xiaoling Yu acted this way, the more curious Miao Yin and Jia Gang became. However, the two of them had benefited and had a full 30 years of leisure time. Naturally, they did not intend to show off in front of Xiaoling Yu. They did not know that the two of them had offended the person they should not have offended. Although Xiaoling Yu was not a narrow-minded person, he was definitely not a softy who did not care about anything. If they were in the cultivation world, he would have killed the two of them directly. However, this time, they were in the devil world, and Xiaoling Yu was unfamiliar with this place. Hence, he could only endure it. However, if he had the chance in the future, he would definitely not let these two guys off easily. After sitting quietly in her room for a while, Xiaoling Yu suppressed the anger in her heart. Then, she went out and began to feed the cubs. While feeding the cubs, Xiaoling Yu was also thinking about some things. As for the punishment of 30 years, although Xiaoling Yu had accepted it, he definitely would not obediently work hard for 30 years. It was not that the time was too long, but he wanted those two guys to suffer a little. They did not use force to plot against him, but wisdom. Xiaoling Yu felt that he had always used his fists to speak in the cultivation world. Now that someone wanted to compete with him in wisdom, there was no harm in fighting with him since he had nothing to do. Xiaoling Yu had not cultivated for a long time, but in terms of wisdom, he was definitely not inferior to ordinary cultivators. 10 days passed in a hurry. Xiaoling Yu gloomily discovered that Miao Yin and Jia Gang had been shut in their rooms. It was really difficult for him to plot against them. The main reason Xiaoling Yu did not have any ideas was that he was not familiar enough with the Imperial Beast Hall and the East Pole Demon Sect. He did not know the temperament of these East Pole Demon Sect cultivators and could not make use of them. He could only put on an act. Not only would they not believe him, but it was also very likely that he would harm himself. After thinking bitterly for an entire year, Xiaoling Yu, who was busy all day, still could not come up with a good idea. Just as he was about to give up, the hunchbacked old man in charge sent a new batch of 500 cubs. However, he only took the strongest cubs to the prison. As a result, Xiaoling Yu's task undoubtedly increased by a lot, but he was still the only one responsible for feeding the cubs. However, when feeding the new batch of 500 cubs, Xiaoling Yu discovered that one of the cubs was a little different. The aura on its body made him feel very familiar, as if he had seen his own child. Xiaoling Yu was very surprised by this strange feeling, but he was also a little confused. This cub was very small, so small that he could grab most of its body with a palm. Moreover, this cub was very lovable. It had a carapace that could only cover its back. There were 7 different colored spots on the carapace, and those spots would always flicker from time to time. It was very mysterious. Apart from the carapace on its back, it looked like a pangolin. Its body was very long, its tail was covered in scales, and its waist and head were covered in snow-white fur. The jade slip left behind by the hunchbacked old man said that this was a kind of magical beast called the 7-star demonic armor rat. However, Xiaoling Yu felt that this was not the case. After a detailed examination, Xiaoling Yu was shocked to discover that this cute cub actually had primal chaos force in its body. Moreover, it had been demonized like him. It was precisely because this cub had primal chaos force that Xiaoling Yu felt very familiar with it. However, the primal chaos force in the cub was very weak. If a cultivator did not specialize in primal chaos force, they would not be able to detect it. Where does this little fellow's primal chaos force come from? Xiaoling Yu was very surprised. This cub had clearly been born not long ago and was still ignorant of everything. It definitely did not cultivate primal chaos force on its own through some kind of cultivation method. After observing for a long time, Xiaoling Yu was still unable to find out how this cub had obtained primal chaos force. He first settled it in a safe place in the valley, then walked far away. However, he used his mind to tightly lock onto the cub. The cub was pitifully weak now, so was naturally unable to detect Xiaoling Yu's thoughts. After Xiaoling Yu walked far away for a long time, the faint light emitted by the 7 colored spots on the long carapace on its back became much stronger. Moreover, its long tail stood upright and pointed toward the sky. The scales on its tail seemed to have naturally formed runes that flowed out. After about 10 minutes, Xiaoling Yu discovered that the primal chaos force in the space around the cub was actually gathering towards the cub's tail. So it was born with the ability to absorb primal chaos force. No wonder. Xiaoling Yu withdrew his thoughts and said in understanding. The appearance of this strange cub made Xiaoling Yu temporarily forget about scheming against Miao, Yin, and Jia Gang. He even hoped that the two of them would never appear again, so that he could have more time to continue observing this cub. This also prevented others from discovering this cub's uniqueness. Although this strange cub was very vigilant, its cultivation was still too weak. Even with Miao Yin and Jia Gang's cultivation, they could easily spy on it. The cub's abilities were simply too weak. Xiaoling Yu waited for half a year, but he did not see it grow at all. The primal chaos force in its body had only increased by a little. If Xiaoling Yu's primal chaos force was a vast ocean, then the primal chaos force in the cub's body was only a drop of water in the ocean. Xiaoling Yu really could not wait any longer. When he was feeding the cub, he took advantage of the fact that no one was around to infuse a trace of his primal chaos force into the cub's body. Xiaoling Yu did not dare to be too bold. The trace of primal chaos force that he infused was only equivalent to 1/3 of the cub's current primal chaos force. What made Xiaoling Yu slightly relieved was that the cub easily absorbed the trace of primal chaos force and refined it in the blink of an eye. The cub's primal chaos force had increased by quite a bit. Just like that, Xiaoling Yu continued to feed the cub every day. A round of feeding had increased from the original 10 days to 12 days. Every time it was the cub's turn, Xiaoling Yu would increase its primal chaos force by 1/3. After another year, the cub's size had grown slightly, but Xiaoling Yu was still able to grab half of its body with one hand. Perhaps it was because Xiaoling Yu was constantly increasing its primal chaos force, or perhaps it was because it had seen Xiaoling Yu too many times, or perhaps it was because Xiaoling Yu's primal chaos force was very familiar to it. In the past, the cub was very wary of Xiaoling Yu. Now, it would squeak whenever it saw Xiaoling Yu. Sometimes, it would even cling to Xiaoling Yu and refuse to get off. Xiaoling Yu naturally liked this cub more and more. Every time he fed it, he would do his best to feed it. As for the other normal cub, Xiaoling Yu was too lazy to even look at them. It was also because of the appearance of this cub that Xiaoling Yu felt that the task of feeding the cub was not that tiresome. In fact, it was very interesting. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.